Chapter 1361. The mansion master's tone was complicated as he sighed emotionally. At that moment, Ji Tianqing's body shook violently. His eyes widened as he looked at the mansion master in disbelief. The four of you? Reunite? He never thought that the mansion master would say such a thing. He understood the mansion master's meaning almost instantly. That was why he was so shocked and felt incredulous. Could it be that the mansion master is? As this thought flashed through his mind, he became agitated. His blood flow and heartbeat sped up. I see. I traveled all over the Tianxian continent and only found Kenshin's 3 in-name disciples, but I couldn't find Gu Daoxian. I didn't expect that the mansion master was Gu Daoxian, Kenshin's eldest disciple. No wonder Shui Ruoyu said that Gu Daoxian had disappeared for 1,000 years without any trace or news. No wonder the mansion master took good care of me after knowing that I was a descendant of Kenshin. Moreover, he knew everything about Kenshin. He personally told me about Guyi Xiaoshui and asked me to find Kenshin's followers. At that moment, Ji Tianqing finally understood everything. All the doubts that had been lingering in his heart these few years were finally solved. After a long while, he came back to his senses and calmed down. At that moment, the mansion master nodded slightly at him and said calmly, "Tianqing, follow me." With that, the mansion master got up and left the main hall. He led him through a secret door in the corner of the main hall and into the depths of the imperial palace. The two of them walked along the dark passage for thousands of feet before entering a spacious and dark secret room. When they stepped through the door of the secret room, Ji Tianqing clearly felt that space and time were distorted. It was as if he had passed through an invisible bubble and entered another space. Without a doubt, the flow of time in this secret room was different from the outside world. 10 months ago, he had come to this secret room and cultivated in seclusion for a long time. The mansion master walked to the center of the secret room and waved his hand to shoot out a dazzling golden light into the wall. Suddenly, more than a dozen gemstone lamps lit up on the surrounding walls, emitting dazzling multicolored lights, illuminating the entire secret room. The black stone floor was engraved with mysterious and ancient patterns. It was the ancient divine array that could change the flow of time. The mansion lord waved his hand again, shooting out a dense ray of light. Immediately, 3 wide ice jade beds appeared in the secret room, lined up in a row on the ground. The manor lord turned to Ji Tianqing and said, "Tianqing, invite the 3 of them out." Ji Tianqing hurriedly opened the world in the sword and moved Shui Ruoyu, Xiao Wentian, and Emperor Yi into the secret chamber. He placed them on 3 ice jade beds. The 3 of them were severely injured and had been unconscious the entire time. Among them, Xiao Wentian's injuries were the most serious. Ren Huangye's injuries were second, and Shui Ruoyu's injuries were slightly lighter. The headmaster stared at the 3 people lying on the jade bed. He studied their appearances and sensed the aura of their souls. Reminiscence flashed across his eyes. 1,000 years passed by in the blink of an eye. The time the 4 of us spent together was very short, and we never gathered together to follow and serve the master. But we knew of each other's existence, and we all had the same beliefs and goals in our hearts. The mansion lord murmured in a complicated tone. There was a heavy sorrow in the depths of his eyes. Ever since Ji Tianqing met the mansion lord, he had always felt that the mansion lord was high and mighty, sacred and dignified. It was as if he had no emotions and was like a celestial being. However, at this moment, he realized that the mansion lord was not emotionless. It was just that he hid his emotions too deeply. If one was not close to him, it was impossible to have too much contact with him. Of course, one could not see the changes in his emotions. After a while, the mansion lord slowly raised his hands and used a secret technique to heal the injuries of Emperor Yi and the others. His hands formed a strange seal, and the secret technique he used was very mysterious and profound. Beams of brilliant golden light condensed into strange seals and entered the bodies of the three people. Ji Tianqing stood silently at the side, quietly watching the mansion lord cast the spell. However, he realized that he could not understand the trajectory of the mansion lord's spell. Shui Ruoyu has just reached the first level of the primordial soul realm, so there are still traces of her using the secret technique. However, the mansion lord's method of casting the spell is completely baffling to me. His strength is also as powerful as the deep sea, unfathomable. It seems that the mansion lord is not only an primordial soul realm powerhouse, but he has most likely reached the peak of the primordial soul realm. This thought appeared in Ji Tianqing's mind, and he was full of confidence in the mansion lord. He believed that with the mansion lord's powerful strength and methods, he would definitely be able to heal Emperor Yi and the others. Unknowingly, 5 days passed. The mansion lord continuously used the secret technique and persisted for 5 days and 5 nights without stopping. He used hundreds of thousands of seals one after another to heal the injuries of Emperor Yi and the others, using up a huge amount of his power. However, his expression remained calm, without the slightest hint of exhaustion. He had a calm and composed demeanor. It was as if his magic power was inexhaustible, and would never be exhausted. Finally, when the mansion lord cast the 990,000th seal, he slowly stopped and ended the spell casting. He put his hands behind his back and looked at Emperor Yi and the others with a calm expression, waiting silently. Emperor Yi and the others were wrapped in a layer of hazy golden light. Their physical and spiritual injuries were rapidly recovering, and their life auras were becoming more and more majestic. In particular, Xiaofan's change was the greatest. His body had originally turned into a dried corpse, but now it was producing new blood. His skin, flesh, and blood were rapidly recovering. Ji Tianqing witnessed the changes in the three with his own eyes. He was secretly looking forward to it, and he was also shocked by the mansion lord's powerful methods. Very quickly, another 6 hours passed. The golden light that enveloped Shui Ruoyu gradually dissipated. She was the first to wake up, and she slowly opened her eyes. This place. Where am I? She looked around in a daze, sizing up the situation in the secret chamber. She used her arms to support her body and slowly sat up on the frost jade bed. She turned her head and saw Ji Tianqing and the mansion lord beside the bed. When she saw the faces of the two people clearly, she was immediately shocked, and her eyes were filled with shock. Little junior brother? And eldest? Eldest senior brother? Eldest senior brother. Is it really you? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? After 1,000 years, I can actually still see you. You. Why are you two together? Shui Ruoyu was very emotional. She stared at the mansion lord in disbelief, as if she was in a dream. The mansion lord looked at her with a smile and said in a gentle tone, "Little junior sister, how have you been?" Hearing the mansion lord's words, Shui Ruoyu could no longer control the excitement and emotions in her heart. Her eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of mist, and sparkling tears poured out. Eldest senior brother, it really is you. She held the edge of the bed with trembling hands and immediately wanted to get off the bed. Chapter 1362. After 1,000 years, Shui Ruoyu and Gu Daoxian were finally reunited. Both of them were filled with emotions. There were too many things in their hearts that they wanted to tell each other. Ji Tianqing stood to the side, silently listening to the two of them reminiscing about the past and talking about their past. After about 2 hours, Emperor Yi and Xiaofan woke up one after another. Their reactions were almost the same as Shui Ruoyu's. When they saw the mansion master, they were shocked and in disbelief. They were stunned for a long time before they reacted. They emotionally called out, "Eldest senior brother," and were about to get off the bed to bow to the mansion master. Although they had lived for more than 1,000 years and were grandmaster-level powerhouses, they were all white-haired and senile. In their hearts, other than their master, their biggest support was their eldest senior brother, Gu Daoxian. After all, Gu Daoxian was the first in-name disciple of Kenshin. He was also the most outstanding martial arts genius among the four of them. Back then, Gu Daoxian had taken good care of them and was the backbone of the three of them. He was just like the old saying, an elder brother is like a father. After 1,000 years, the four in-name disciples of Kenshin were finally reunited here. Of course, there was also Ji Tianqing, the successor of Kenshin. The five of them were all disciples of Kenshin. They had an unbreakable bond and relationship with each other. Everyone was very excited and gratified. They chatted for a long time, but there was still something to talk about. In the course of the conversation, Ji Tianqing spoke less and listened more. Thus, he gained a deeper understanding of the events from 1,000 years ago. Unknowingly, a night had passed. It was not until the next morning that everyone stopped chatting and began to talk about serious matters. The mansion master looked at Ji Tianqing and asked in a low voice, "Tianqing, you said before that the demon emperor sent the demon clan's powerhouses and the blood god to attack your three junior brothers and junior sisters and steal their divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons. It could be a shocking conspiracy?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a low voice, "That's right. 10 months ago, I talked to you about this in person. The demon emperor was carrying out a secret plan to resurrect the ancestor demon god. Only with the rebirth of the ancestor devil god could the devil clan truly regain their glory. They could once again take over the world and dominate the entire Tianxian continent. I'm almost certain that the reason why the devil emperor sent experts to steal the divine items of my three senior martial brothers and sisters is related to this plan." Shui Ruoyu also nodded in agreement and said, "Eldest senior brother, you should be very clear that the divine objects that Master gave us are all unique treasures on this continent and are comparable to divine artifacts. Once the Devil Emperor obtains our divine item, he will be able to cast a spell to create a fleshly body comparable to a divine artifact." Since Tianqing mentioned the matter of reviving the ancestral devil god, I boldly guessed that the ancestral devil god had not perished in the antiquity age and was able to survive until now. Only a shred of his soul was left. If the ancestral fiend god was reborn, without a corporeal body, his strength would be greatly reduced. However, if the Devil Emperor were to forge a divine body for it, it would be completely awakened and reborn. Its strength would be terrifyingly powerful. At that time, all the experts in the world would not be able to resist it. Even if we were to join forces, we would not be a match for the ancestral fiend god. Emperor Yi and Xiao Wentian had also heard from Ji Tianqing that the Devil Emperor wanted to revive the ancestral fiend god. Therefore, after listening to Ji Tianqing and Shui Ruoyu's analysis, the two of them nodded in agreement and revealed worried expressions. That damned ancient Devil Emperor. He is so sinister and despicable. He actually concocted such a shocking scheme. How despicable. The Devil Emperor has already obtained our divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons. It's enough for him to forge a preliminary divine body. If the Devil Emperor obtains eldest senior brother's deity heart, he will be able to form a complete divine body. Then, his scheme will succeed. Shui Ruoyu nodded solemnly. She looked at the palace master and said, "Eldest senior brother, although the Devil Emperor has obtained our three divine items, he cannot forge a complete divine body. The final key lies in the deity heart in your body. Only with your deity heart can a true divine body be formed. Therefore, you must protect yourself no matter what. You must be careful. You must not let the Devil Emperor succeed." Ji Tianqing also reminded, now that the situation is very critical, the Devil Emperor will definitely use the divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons to form a divine body for the ancestral fiend god. Soon, the devil race's army will invade the Central Plains. A storm of blood will descend. However, we still have a glimmer of hope. As long as we unite and think of a way to stop the devil race's attack, we still have a chance to turn the situation around. However, if Palace Master's deity heart is also snatched away, the ancestral fiend god will be able to obtain a complete divine body and recover his strength quickly. When that time comes, the profound sky continent will definitely be plunged into misery and suffering. Every race in the world will be powerless to resist and can only be slaughtered and enslaved by the devil race. At this point, the atmosphere in the secret chamber became particularly solemn. Everyone's mood was very gloomy. The palace master's gaze swept across everyone and said with a determined expression, "Everyone, don't worry. With the devil emperor's current strength, it's impossible for him to snatch away my deity heart. Moreover, I will do my best to stop the devil race's schemes. I will not let the central plains fall and the devil race dominate the world." When everyone heard the palace master's words, their hearts calmed down. Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to ask, "Palace Master, what plans do you have for the next step?" The palace master said with a solemn expression, "I will immediately give the order for all the princes in the imperial residence to return to their respective races and forces to resist the devil race's invasion. In addition, I will also send a few god-tier masters to the various battlefields to assist the various races in resisting the devil race's attack." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "That's good. I don't expect the god-tier masters and the princes to be able to stop the devil race's attack. I just hope that they can buy some time." The palace master looked at him with a deep gaze and said in a low voice, "These are all delaying tactics. They can't solve the fundamental problem. There is also another very important matter that is extremely urgent and needs to be completed as soon as possible." Ji Tianqing frowned in confusion and asked, "What is it, palace master?" The palace master said in a serious tone, "Tianqing, you are master's successor and also the devil emperor's nemesis. If the situation of the continent is desperate, I'm afraid you will be needed to turn the tide and expel the devil race. The 3 junior brothers and junior sisters are already seriously injured and weak. They won't be able to participate in the war for the next 10 years. I will also leave the Central Plains to complete that mission. Therefore, you are the hope of all of us." Ji Tianqing immediately felt the heavy pressure and said with some difficulty, "Palace Master, you think too highly of me. I want to kill the devil emperor and eradicate the devil race in the world, returning the continent to its former glory. But with my current strength, I can't create a miracle, let alone turn the tide." The palace master looked at him with a determined gaze and nodded, "No, Tianqing, you can do it." Chapter 1363. Logically speaking, the prefecture lord was the strongest person in the Tianxian continent. In the face of the demon race's invasion and the continent's imminent collapse, the prefecture lord should have stepped forward and turned the tide. However, Ji Tianqing was very clear that the prefecture lord was not shirking his responsibility. Although he was the strongest person in the Tianxian continent, he was not a free person. He was also a subordinate of that mysterious person and worked for that person. A year was almost up, and the prefecture lord had to bring Yun Yao out of the Tianxian continent and rush to the Shenwu continent. This was the agreement between the prefecture lord and Cloud Soul Palace, and it was also the plan of that person. It was the prefecture lord's mission. If he did not comply and angered that person who stood at the pinnacle of all life, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, at this critical juncture, the demon race's army was marching south, and the human race's defensive line was being pushed back. The central region was in imminent danger. Ji Tianqing could only sigh inwardly. Fate truly made fools of people, and fate was full of misfortune. The demon race's attack was simply too fast. When the prefecture lord saw that Lu Yin was silent, he did not say anything else and gave him time to consider and make a choice. Emperor Yi, Xiao Wentian, and Shui Ruoyu had already made their preparations and plans. The 3 of them looked at Ji Tianqing with concern and took turns to persuade him. Shui Ruoyu looked at him kindly and said earnestly, Tianqing, there are only 5 of us here today, so let's not talk about saving the world or saving the common people. You are not a saint, and neither are we. No one is born with the mission of saving the human race. You can think about it carefully and answer after you've thought it through. No one has the right to force you. However, there is one thing you must know, killing the ancient devil emperor and eradicating the demon race is also Master's wish. After Shui Ruoyu finished speaking, Emperor Yi said calmly, Tianqing, we all know your nature. It is impossible for you to stay out of this and completely ignore this matter. You cannot watch the demon race invade the central region and wantonly slaughter our people without doing anything. We are almost crippled, and we cannot help you anymore. The only thing we can do is to impart to you the secret arts that we have learned in our lifetime so that you can grow as quickly as possible. As for whether you can kill the devil emperor in the future and end this war, no one knows. We can only do our best and leave the rest to fate. This way, even if I die in battle, I will have a clear conscience. Xiao Wentian was silent for a while before he finally said, according to our estimation, the devil emperor has already recovered to the primordial spirit realm. Apart from that, there were also a few essence soul realm supremacies among the large number of blood gods he created. There was also an ancestral demon god with a half-step divine body who was about to be reborn. These were the strongest experts of the demon race. With your talent and combat ability, you will have a chance to kill the Nephilim Emperor and the Blood God and save the continent once you break through to the primordial spirit realm. Tianqing, you have to believe in the lifetime of the 4 of us. It will definitely increase your strength greatly. After he finished speaking, the mansion master finally spoke. He said to Tianqing, Tianqing, the 4 of us are proficient in different secret arts, but they were all imparted to us by our master. If the 4 of us impart our secret arts to you, you will have 20% of our master's strength when you reach the primordial spirit realm. Moreover, when you cultivate our master's sword Dao in the future, it will be twice the result with half the effort. It will be greatly beneficial. Think about it carefully. If you agree, we will start imparting as soon as possible. You will cultivate in seclusion in this secret chamber. I will use all the resources in the Monarch Mansion to maintain the operation of the formation in the secret chamber so that you can cultivate in seclusion here for about 2 years. When you come out of seclusion, only a little more than a month will have passed in the outside world. There should be enough time. The mansion master, Emperor Yi, and the other 3 had nothing more to say. After they finished speaking, they looked at Tianqing with burning eyes, waiting for him to make a decision. Tianqing's expression had been very calm. His eyes swept across the faces of the 4 people and suddenly revealed a trace of a smile. Actually, I understand all the reasons you have said. Even if you didn't persuade me, I already had an answer in my heart. A long time ago, I swore that I would kill the demon emperor and eradicate the demon clan in the northern desert. The pain that the demon clan once inflicted on my family and friends, I will return it 10-fold, no, 100-fold. Thank you, senior brothers and senior sisters, for trusting me unconditionally and placing such high hopes in me. I agree. If it's convenient, let's start imparting as soon as possible. Seeing that Tianqing had finally agreed, the mansion master, Emperor Yi, and the others breathed a sigh of relief and revealed gratified expressions. Tianqing, we are proud of you. We are all master's disciples and successors. Regardless of life or death, we will never bring shame to master's name. After a while, everyone calmed down and began to impart their skills. Tianqing sat cross-legged on the icy jade bed. He circulated his skills and adjusted his breathing for a moment, reaching a state of cultivation where his mind was clear. Shui Ruoyu took the lead and sat opposite Tianqing. She waved her hands and performed a secret technique, forming a mysterious seal. She activated her majestic spiritual energy and condensed the 3 secret techniques that she had cultivated in her life into a ball of dazzling white light. Then, she slowly pushed out her palms and pressed the ball of dazzling spiritual energy on Ji Tianqing's forehead. Swoosh! The egg-sized ball of spiritual energy slowly entered Ji Tianqing's forehead and gradually entered his mind. After a full hour, the ball of white light stabilized and floated in his mind, temporarily accepted by him. After Shui Ruoyu finished imparting her skills, she looked as if she had been seriously ill. Her breathing was very weak, her face was pale, and her body was drenched in sweat. She stopped with difficulty and walked down the icy jade bed. She staggered to the corner of the secret room and circulated her skills to adjust her breathing. Then, Xiaofan took another step forward and sat down in front of Ji Tianqing. He also held his breath and concentrated on channeling his skills. He condensed the 2 secret techniques that he had studied in his life into a ball of spiritual energy and transferred it into Ji Tianqing's mind. His injuries were more serious, so the process of imparting his skills was very difficult and slow. It took a lot of time. After a full hour, he finally finished imparting his skills and slowly stopped. He was so tired that he almost collapsed on the ground. He had almost exhausted all his strength. With the help of the palace master, he walked to the corner of the secret room and circulated his skills to adjust his breathing. The third person to impart his skills to Ji Tianqing was naturally Emperor Yi. He also spent more than 2 hours to impart the 2 secret techniques that he had studied in his life to Ji Tianqing. At this point, there were already 3 balls of spiritual energy floating in Ji Tianqing's mind. With his current strength, cultivation level, and the strength of his spiritual energy, this was already the limit. If the palace master imparted his skills to him again, his mind and spiritual energy might not be able to withstand too much power. Accidents and dangers might occur. When the palace master discovered this situation, he let Ji Tianqing refine and absorb the 3 secret techniques first. After a while, he would impart his secret techniques to Ji Tianqing. In order not to disturb Ji Tianqing's cultivation, he quietly left the secret room with Emperor Yi, Xiaofan, and Shui Ruoyu. Chapter 1364. Although the mansion master had already treated Emperor Yi and the other 2's injuries, the 3 of them were no longer in critical condition. The 3 of them were fine now, and they could still use their arts to teach Ji Tianqing their ultimate techniques. However, their injuries were too severe, and it was impossible for them to recover in a short period of time. At the very least, they would need to recuperate for many years before they could recover a certain amount of combat power. It was basically impossible for them to recover to their peak strength. After all, their divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons had been removed. They had already lost their most precious divine items. In the future, even if they recovered from their injuries, their strength would be greatly reduced. Even their martial arts aptitude would be greatly reduced. It would be very difficult for them to break through the shackles of martial arts and reach a higher realm. It was precisely because of this that they imparted their most powerful ultimate techniques to Ji Tianqing and did their best to help him. The secret chamber was dark and silent. Only Ji Tianqing was alone. He sat cross-legged on the ice jade bed and was concentrating on cultivating. There were too many treasures stored in his mind. It was enough to make any soul refinement cultivator go crazy with jealousy. In the middle was his divine soul golden sword. Above it was the blazing white heaven mending pearl. Below it was the quaint Big Dipper god fire cauldron. 7 dazzling white divine soul magic swords were suspended in a circle around him. In addition, there were 3 blazing white balls of divine soul light that floated quietly around him. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and decided to go from easy to difficult. He would first refine Xiaofan and Emperor Ye's divine soul light. Lastly, he would refine Shui Ruoyu's divine soul light. After all, Shui Ruoyu was the strongest among the 3 of them. She had already broken through to the primordial soul realm. He would first refine Xiaofan's divine soul light. When he released his divine soul power and came into contact with that ball of divine soul light, he immediately felt a majestic and mighty aura. There was also an endless amount of information pouring in like a torrential flood, pouring into his divine soul. Among the complex and profound information, there were two ultimate techniques recorded. Both of them were top-notch and powerful secret techniques. Although there were only two secret techniques, they were both passed down from Kenshin. Naturally, they had been tempered thousands of times and were incomparably perfect techniques. Ji Tianqing focused his mind and abandoned all distracting thoughts. He focused on refining the ball of white light and receiving the information within. After 5 whole days, he finally finished absorbing all the information in the ball of light and roughly understood the two absolute arts that Xiao Wentian had imparted to him. The first move was the star-shattering fist. Without a doubt, this was a powerful and unfathomable offensive spell. This fist technique had already surpassed the category of martial skills. It could be called a divine skill. It could draw upon the power of heaven and earth and release an incomparably terrifying power. If one cultivated it to the extreme and reached an incomparably profound level, one punch could shatter the stars in outer space. Ji Tianqing repeatedly studied the star-breaking fist's incantation, comprehending its profound meaning and essence. Gradually, he grasped the knack of it. As his understanding of the star-shattering fist deepened, he became more and more shocked and expectant. As expected of the ultimate technique taught by Kenshin. The concept of the fist technique, the way it works, the way it exerts force, the way it attacks, the way it changes, and so on are all refreshing. Not only is Kenshin the god of the sword, but his understanding and attainment of the fist technique is also absolutely superb. With Xiao Wentian's strength, if he uses the star-shattering fist with all his strength, he can only shatter 200 miles of mountains and rivers. Only when one reaches Kenshin's level can he shatter the stars in outer space with a single punch. Just as this thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind, the ball of white light twisted a few times and condensed into a white figure. This small figure was condensed from Xiao Wentian's spiritual consciousness. Its appearance was exactly the same as his. He was in Ji Tianqing's mind and looked at the spiritual golden sword with a smile on his face. He said, "Tianqing, don't underestimate this star-shattering fist. This is one of my most powerful ultimate techniques. Since Master imparted this star-shattering fist to me 1,000 years ago, I have studied it for 1,000 years. Unfortunately, I have not reached the primordial spirit realm and can only use 20% of the star-shattering fist's power. In the future, when you pass the heavenly tribulation and reach the martial sage or martial god realm, when you use the star-shattering fist again, you will definitely be able to shatter the stars with a single punch." Ji Tianqing knew that this Xiao Wentian was just a spiritual consciousness shadow. The reason why he could communicate with his spiritual consciousness was to help him quickly comprehend the ultimate technique. He quickly replied, "Senior brother Xiao, don't worry. I will definitely focus on comprehending this ultimate technique and bring it to greater heights." Xiao Wentian nodded his head in satisfaction and said with a smile, "In that case, I will pass on the essence and tricks of the star-shattering fist to you." Listen carefully. After that, he truthfully told Ji Tianqing the key tricks and essence of the star-shattering fist. At the same time, he also told Xiao Wentian about his experience and understanding of the star-shattering fist in full detail. Originally, Ji Tianqing would have needed to spend a few years to explore and comprehend all these. Now that Xiao Wentian had directly imparted it to him, he could quickly comprehend and master it. A month later, he had completely mastered the star-shattering fist's skill and essence. He had also memorized it in his spiritual consciousness and would never forget it. Next, he started to comprehend the second ultimate technique. The second ultimate technique that Xiao Wentian imparted to him was called, "Ask the Heavens with a Horizontal Sword." This was an unfathomable sword technique that Kenshin had imparted to Xiao Wentian. Xiao Wentian had been cultivating this sword technique for thousands of years and had cultivated it to an extremely high level. All along, Xiaofan had treated this sword technique as his trump card. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would definitely not use it. Previously, when the demon clan experts had sneaked into the Xiao clan and besieged him at the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, he had used this sword technique to kill 2 demon clan experts and force the blood god, who had attacked him, to retreat. The remaining power of the sword technique had shattered the entire Pillar of Heaven's mountains and turned it into ruins for a few hundred miles. Taking advantage of that opportunity, he had taken out the ancient black metal piece and entered the Dharma treasure space. He had only managed to escape by hiding a few dozen miles deep underground. Ji Tianqing spent a few days memorizing the skill of Ask the Heavens with a horizontal sword. He had reached a level where he could recite it backwards. Then, under the explanation and teaching of the White Dwarf, he gradually comprehended the essence of this sword technique and used a month to master it. 2 months later, he had refined Xiaofan's spiritual light and truly mastered the 2 ultimate techniques, the star-shattering fist and Ask the Heavens with a horizontal sword. He did not stop cultivating and continued to refine Renhuangye's spiritual light. The 2 ultimate techniques that Renhuangye had imparted to him were also imparted by Kenshin. Moreover, Renhuangye had added in his experience and comprehension of 1,000 years of cultivation. The first ultimate technique was called the Heaven-Capturing Palm. The effect and power of this secret technique could be seen from its name. As long as Ji Tianqing had mastered the Heaven-Capturing Palm, he would be able to unleash a powerful capturing technique that could easily deal with powerful enemies and capture objects from a distance. Moreover, the Heaven-Capturing Palm also contained thousands of changes and magical uses. It had incredible effects. Chapter 1365. While Ji Tianqing was comprehending the Heaven-Capturing Palm, Emperor Ye's ball of light condensed into an illusory figure and showed him the right path. Although this ultimate technique sounded simple, there were too many mysteries and changes contained within it. Even with the guidance of Emperor Ye's spiritual light, Ji Tianqing spent more than 20 days to completely comprehend and master the Heaven-Capturing Palm. Next, he began to comprehend the second ultimate technique. Boundless Soul Destruction / It was Ji Tianqing's first time coming into contact with a secret technique with such a name, so he was still a little confused. After the guidance of Emperor Ye's spiritual light, he realized the uniqueness of this secret technique. This was an offensive secret technique that condensed the power of heaven and earth, magic power, and spiritual strength. It could be released with any weapon, such as a saber, a spear, a sword, a halberd, and so on. Of course, it could also be performed barehanded without using any weapons. This secret technique was specifically targeted at the spiritual strength. It was very powerful, and it was invisible. Its greatest characteristic was that it could be used at will. It could be used at any time, under any circumstances, and under any circumstances. It was impossible for the opponent to guard against it. If a primordial soul realm powerhouse used this boundless soul destruction / he could kill the enemy from thousands of miles away without making a sound. As expected, this is a special ultimate technique. It's most suitable for sneak attacks, assassinations, and desperate counterattacks. Ji Tianqing was very interested in this secret technique and was full of anticipation. Under Emperor Ye's guidance, he focused on comprehending and cultivating. A month later, he completely comprehended the boundless soul destruction / and successfully mastered this ultimate technique. Renhuangye's ball of spiritual light also disappeared. He had refined the 2 ultimate techniques. Only a ball of white spiritual light was left in his mind. It belonged to Shui Ruoyu. When he circulated his energy to refine the ball of spiritual light and received the information within, he realized that the 2 ultimate techniques that Shui Ruoyu imparted to him were also extraordinary. The first ultimate technique was called Divine Concealment Step. This was a mysterious and strange step technique that Kenshin had created 1,000 years ago. After mastering this step technique, one could move dozens of miles with a single step. One could move freely between heaven and earth at a speed as fast as teleportation. Regardless of whether it was used for traveling, fighting, escaping, or chasing, this was a top-notch footwork. More importantly, by using the divine concealment step, one could achieve the effect of invisibility and conceal one's aura. Only when one's strength was a few levels higher and was close to him would he be in danger of being exposed. Otherwise, almost no one would be able to see through the divine concealment steps. Back when Venerable Bloodlust had led the Devil Race's experts to attack the hidden god sect, Shui Ruoyu had been unable to defeat Venerable Bloodlust. After her god bone was removed, she was about to be killed. However, she had relied on the divine concealment step to evade the search and pursuit of the Venerable Bloodlust and survive in the end. When Ji Tianqing understood all of this, he felt that the spirit concealment step was extremely mysterious and powerful. It was simply too practical. It took him more than a month to comprehend the essence of the divine concealment step and successfully master this ultimate technique. The second technique that Shui Ruoyu taught him was also a sword technique. The sea was cold. This sword technique was taught to her by Kenshin back then, and it had a deeper meaning. It was a late autumn night. A crescent moon hung high in the sky, and bits and pieces of stars shone with cold light. The night wind was cold, and Shui Ruoyu, who was still a gentle girl, stood alone by the autumn lake, looking at the surface of the lake in deep thought. Her gaze and mood were like the lake water on an autumn night, cold but calm. The hatred of her parents being killed and the tragic scene of her entire clan being annihilated still lingered in her mind, and she could not get rid of it. Although she was weak, there was hatred in her heart, and she had accumulated a monstrous rage. She only wanted to kill all of her enemies and avenge her parents. Just as her thoughts were melancholy and the knot in her heart could not be undone, a handsome, and elegant white-robed figure silently came to her side. The person who came was Kenshin, the man that she had admired her entire life, who was like a god. Kenshin's body was as straight as a sword, and he expressionlessly stood by the lake. His eyes were deep as he looked at the surface of the lake, and he said a few words with an indifferent tone. The 7 emotions and 6 desires, love, hate, and infatuation can also make people work hard and cultivate. However, this is an evil path, and it cannot be maintained for long. Otherwise, the martial arts foundation will be destroyed, and one will go berserk. Only those who are calm and wise can comprehend the mysteries of heaven and reach the peak of martial arts. Shui Ruoyu turned around and looked at Kenshin, and asked with confusion and bewilderment, "Your Honor, I understand what you mean, but I can't let go of my hatred, and I will never forget those tragic scenes." Kenshin was silent for a moment, and his deep eyes revealed a trace of radiance. He said calmly, "You can't forget your hatred, but you can't lose your mind because of your hatred. Then why don't you try, turn your hatred into sword intent, and cut it all away, just like this." As he spoke, he raised his right hand, and a 3 feet long resplendent sword light condensed on his fingertips, and he slashed at the lake in front of him. Swoosh! The dazzling sword light cut through the night sky, and it actually bloomed with a brilliance that was even more resplendent than the moon. At that moment, half of the night sky was illuminated, and it was as bright as day. The sword light slashed into the calm lake, and it did not make a loud sound, nor did it cause huge waves. However, the huge lake with a radius of 100 miles instantly froze into ice. Moreover, a crack that was dozens of miles long was cut in the middle of the frozen lake, and it was as deep as an abyss, and it was thousands of feet deep. Shui Ruoyu was shocked, and she was full of admiration for Kenshin's superb swordsmanship. At the same time, she also understood Kenshin's intention, and she remembered that sword move in her heart, and would never forget it. When she came back to her senses, Kenshin had already turned around and left the lake. She stared at Kenshin's back, and asked with bright eyes, "Your Honor, does this sword move have a name?" Kenshin's footsteps paused for a moment, and he left without looking back. His voice, which was as calm as water but deep and low, drifted over with the night wind. Cold of the azure sea. Since that autumn night, Shui Ruoyu had comprehended a new ultimate sword technique. It was also from then on that she understood that Kenshin, who looked cold and sacred, would also use his own way to care for others. Moreover, Kenshin was also a person with a story. However, those who were qualified to listen to his story were probably not born yet, or were not in this world. Shui Ruoyu's consciousness phantom told Ji Tianqing this story when she imparted the sword move to him. Ji Tianqing was somewhat moved, and he also understood Shui Ruoyu's intention, and why she wanted to impart this sword move. He spent 1.5 months to comprehend this sword move, and he finally succeeded in mastering it. So far, he had refined 3 balls of divine soul light, and also mastered 6 kinds of secret techniques, and his combat strength had imperceptibly increased by a lot. He had been cultivating in seclusion in the secret room for half a year, and only 18 days had passed in the outside world. After this half a year of bitter seclusion, his strength had increased greatly, and he was about to reach the 8th level of the soul refinement realm. He took this opportunity to cultivate the sword Soul Dao, and quickly increased his strength. Chapter 1366. After reaching the 8th tier of the spirit refinement realm, Ji Tianqing's combat strength had increased by several times. His swordsmanship and skills had improved tremendously, and the power of the divine thunder sword realm had also become more powerful. In particular, the 6 ultimate techniques that Emperor Yi, Xiao Wentian, and Shui Ruoyu had taught him had allowed his combat strength to improve by leaps and bounds. Although he had not reached the primordial soul realm yet, he was stronger than an primordial soul realm powerhouse. He temporarily ended his cultivation and ordered the guards outside the secret chamber to report the news to the palace lord. 4 hours later, the palace lord entered the secret chamber alone and came before him. Tianqing, you're done with your closed-door cultivation? You've already refined and mastered the ultimate techniques that the 3 junior brothers and junior sisters taught you? The palace lord looked at him with a burning gaze and asked expectantly. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. After half a year of comprehension and cultivation, I've already mastered them. Although I haven't tried out the power of those ultimate techniques, they'll definitely benefit me for the rest of my life. The mansion lord revealed a gratified expression and nodded slightly. That's great. Your innate talent and comprehension ability have far exceeded my expectations. No wonder junior sister praised you for your outstanding talent, even surpassing master back then. The palace lord revealed a rare kind smile, and his tone was full of praise. Ever since Ji Tianqing had known the palace lord, this was the first time he had seen him smile, and the first time he had received praise and appreciation from him. You flatter me, palace lord, Ji Tianqing smiled and said humbly. The palace lord waved his hand and said seriously, time is of the essence. The situation on the mainland is developing in the direction that you predicted, and the situation is getting worse. I don't have much time left, so let's begin now. After saying that, he waved his palms with a serious expression and activated his lifetime's worth of skills to perform a mysterious and powerful spell. Endless magic power gathered in his body, surging endlessly like a torrential river, and emitting a dull sound of thunder. His entire body lit up with a brilliant golden light, forming a translucent light shield. Furthermore, a golden shadow that was several meters tall appeared behind him. Inside the golden shadow was a golden giant that was 80 feet tall. He wore golden armor and had a dignified face. His aura was sacred and mighty, just like a god. The most peculiar thing was that the 80 feet tall golden armored giant had 2 heads and 6 arms, just like the gods of ancient legends. In the palm of each arm, there was a different magic treasure. There was a dazzling golden sword, a dark golden spear, a broad-backed dragon-headed saber, a treasured furnace, a magic disc, and so on. Ji Tianqing immediately understood after seeing the appearance of the golden-armored giant. That was the Manor Lord's primordial spirit Dharma idol, the legendary Zhang 8 golden body. When cultivated to the peak, one could grow 3 heads and 6 arms, possessing great divine abilities that could pierce through the heavens and the earth. So this is the Manor Lord's Yuan Shen Dharma idol. Compared to a soul refinement realm cultivator's divine soul, it is at least 10 times stronger. I wonder what kind of Dharma power I will condense when I reach the primordial soul realm. Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with shock and envy. He could not help but let his imagination run wild. At that moment, a dark golden ball of light condensed in the Manor Lord's palms and was spinning. The ball of golden light was as big as an egg. It contained a huge amount of information, including the ultimate techniques and cultivation experience that the Manor Lord had imparted. The Manor Lord slowly pushed Ji Tianqing with his palms and pressed the ball of golden light against his forehead. He said with a serious expression, "Tianqing, I will be leaving with Yunyao tomorrow. This is all that I can help you with. Here are the 3 ultimate techniques that I have cultivated throughout my life. They are all primordial soul ultimate techniques that were imparted to me by my master. You must study them diligently and master them as soon as possible. Only when you reach the primordial soul realm in the future can you look down on everyone." As his voice fell, the ball of dark golden light gradually entered Ji Tianqing's mind. Originally, Ji Tianqing had wanted to ask the Manor Lord a few questions. However, when the ball of dark golden light entered his mind, his body shook violently. He looked like he was in pain. His mind was about to burst open. After all, this ball of golden light was condensed from the consciousness of an primordial soul powerhouse. It was too powerful, and the information it contained was too vast. If it were an ordinary soul-tempering powerhouse, he would definitely not be able to withstand the power of this ball of golden light. His soul would definitely be damaged. Ji Tianqing did not dare to let his guard down. He hurriedly held his breath and concentrated on circulating his dermic powers. He used his soul strength to carefully receive the ball of golden light. He exerted all of his soul power, and it took him a full 6 hours to settle the golden ball of light in his mind. At that moment, the Manor Lord had already left quietly. Ji Tianqing circulated his dermic powers and regulated his breathing for a while. Then, he began to refine the ball of golden light and receive the ultimate techniques within. Only then did he realize that there were not only 3 ultimate techniques in the ball of golden light, but there was also an extremely vast amount of dermic powers. As long as he could refine that vast amount of dermic powers, he would be able to save a few years of tough cultivation and reach the half-step primordial soul realm quickly. He might even be able to break through to the primordial soul realm. Without a doubt, this was a huge gift from the Manor Lord. Ji Tianqing understood the significance of this gift and was extremely grateful to the Manor Lord. He also secretly made up his mind to master the 3 ultimate techniques imparted by the Manor Lord so that he would not let down the Manor Lord's efforts. Unknowingly, 20 days passed. After 20 days of comprehension and cultivation, Ji Tianqing received the information in the ball of golden light. Only then did he know that the 3 ultimate techniques imparted by the Manor Lord were indeed top-notch primordial soul realm secret techniques. The first ultimate technique was called Meteor Fire Shower. It was a secret technique with extremely terrifying lethality. When an primordial soul powerhouse executed this technique, he could summon endless heavenly fire that would pour down like a torrential flood, drowning an area of thousands of miles. Wherever the torrential fire rain covered, it would turn into a boundless sea of fire in the blink of an eye. All living creatures would turn into ashes and even the mountains and rivers would turn into lava. When this secret technique was cultivated to a high level, it could even summon meteors from outer space that would crash down like meteors and raise thousands of miles of mountains and rivers to the ground. It was said that when a martial sage executed this technique, he could summon meteors from outer space that were so powerful that they could destroy the heavens and earth. Ji Tianqing was looking forward to this ultimate technique. After studying it seriously for a long time, he decided to take the initiative to cultivate it. Although this ultimate technique was an primordial soul realm technique, given his strength and talent, he could immediately comprehend it and cultivate it. Furthermore, if he were to deal with the demon race in the future, he could use this ultimate technique with terrifying lethality. Together with the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron, he would definitely be able to deal a heavy blow to the demon race army. In order to comprehend and master this ultimate skill, he focused on cultivating it for 5 months before he succeeded in cultivating it. The effort and perseverance that he had put in was something that outsiders could not see or imagine. However, once he mastered this secret technique, he would possess an even more terrifying combat strength that everyone would be able to witness. Chapter 1367. The second technique that the Mansion Master taught him was a true divine technique. The name of this technique was the Heaven and Earth Dharma Body. 1,000 years ago, Kenshin taught this secret technique to Gu Daoxian. He had always remembered it in his heart and engraved it in the depths of his soul. When he broke through to the primordial soul realm, he cultivated this secret technique with all his might. Now, he had already mastered it. It was also this secret technique that allowed him to possess an almost immortal body and become the #1 expert in the Tian-Xian continent. 800 years ago, Gu Daoxian had just inherited the position of Mansion Master. He was not famous and kept a low profile. At that time, all the experts on the continent thought that the Emperor Long Xuanquan was the strongest, followed by the Golden Dragon Emperor of the Water Clan and the Heavenly Demon Emperor of the Demon Clan. Until one day, in a secret realm in the Eastern Sea's returning ruins, Gu Daoxian and Long Xuanquan met. No one knew why the two of them were fighting, or what the process of the fight was like. However, according to the news circulating in the outside world, the two of them had only exchanged 2 moves before the victor was decided. It was said that the Imperial Emperor Long Xuanquan had attacked first and used a powerful secret technique. Gu Daoxian did not dodge and used his Heaven and Earth Dharma body to take it. His body was not injured at all. However, he used a secret technique to push the Emperor Long Xuanquan back 10 miles and destroy the entire secret realm. Long Xuanquan knew that he was no match for Gu Daoxian. He bowed and admitted defeat on the spot and retreated with a sad expression. At that time, only one person witnessed the battle between the strongest experts on the continent. After that, it was this person who spread the news and made this matter one of the legends of the Tian-Xian continent. This person was the leader of the Eastern Sea's Water Clan, the Golden Dragon Emperor. From then on, the name of the Mansion Master was known by all the experts in the world. He was recognized as the #1 expert on the continent. Now that 800 years had passed, there were many experts on the Tian-Xian continent, but no one dared to question his title as the #1 expert. The Mansion Master's strength was also many times stronger than before. He had become more unpredictable, like an immortal. Now, the Mansion Master taught the secret technique of the Heaven and Earth Dharma body to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing had heard of that legend long ago. He only knew that the Mansion Master was the #1 expert on the continent. However, he did not know why the Mansion Master was able to resist the Imperial Emperor's secret technique and remain unscathed. When he understood the terrifying power of the Heaven and Earth Dharma body, he was suddenly enlightened and enlightened. The effect of this secret technique was to cultivate one's physical body into a Dharma body. What is Dharmakaya? The Dharmakaya was a Dharmakaya that could accommodate all the Dharmakaya in the world. Walking, sitting, lying, and every movement could draw upon the power of heaven and earth. He could control the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth, and even his breathing could devour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, thus maintaining his power to never run out. The speed at which the body aged would also become extremely slow. Therefore, primordial soul experts who could cultivate Dharmakaya were all immortal experts. Regardless of whether it was thousands or tens of thousands of years, the body would not age and die. Of course, this was only the basic function of the avatar. There were many kinds of Dharmakaya cultivation methods in the world. In ancient times, the experts of various clans all had their own secret methods to cultivate various kinds of Dharmakaya. For example, the fiery spirit Dharma body, the lunar black water Dharma body, the celestial gung metal Dharma body, the greenwood Dharma body, and so on. The heaven and earth Dharma body taught by the Mansion Master was the most advanced and powerful among all the Dharmakaya secret techniques. It was a god-level cultivation method. Other than the effect of immortality, it also had an almost invincible defense. As long as Ji Tianqing cultivated the heaven and earth Dharma body, even if he had just reached the primordial soul realm, he would be able to control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within a radius of 1,000 miles and devour and use it at any time. When a strong enemy attacked, he could use the heaven and earth Dharma body and merge himself with heaven and earth within 1,000 miles. No matter how strong the enemy's attack was, it would be absorbed and neutralized by heaven and earth within 1,000 miles, and he would be unscathed. Of course, if he could reach the level of the Mansion Master, he would be able to control heaven and earth within a radius of 10,000 miles and his defense would be even more terrifying. All in all, this heaven and earth Dharma body was the strongest defensive trump card for Ji Tianqing. It's a pity that this is a god-level cultivation method. I can only start cultivating it after I break through to the primordial soul realm, condense my primordial soul, and develop divine consciousness. After comprehending the heaven and earth Dharma body, Ji Tianqing sighed regretfully in his heart. Currently, he was unable to cultivate this technique. He could only engrave the cultivation method of the heaven and earth Dharma body in his mind and imprint it in his spirit. As for the third technique imparted by the Mansion Master, it was a god-level cultivation method that was also passed down from Kenshin. This technique's scientific name was the real self-Dharma form. As the name suggested, this technique was a secret technique to condense the primordial soul Dharma form. When a strong fighter broke through to the primordial soul realm, his spirit would evolve into a primordial soul and develop divine consciousness. Just like Shui Ruoyu now, she only had the strength of a first-tier primordial soul realm, but her body only had the primordial soul and divine consciousness. If she wanted to increase her strength and possess more powerful supernatural powers, she had to condense the primordial soul Dharma form. The primordial soul Dharma form was similar to the spirit Dharma eye of a strong fighter in the soul-tempering realm, but it was more powerful and had more mysterious effects. For a strong fighter like the Mansion Master, his primordial soul Dharma form could leave his body and roam the heavens and earth, traversing the entire Tianxian continent. If the main body and the primordial soul Dharma form were separated, the primordial soul Dharma form would be equivalent to a clone that possessed the same strength as the main body. If the two were combined into one, their combat power would increase by at least 2 times during a battle. Of course, the primordial soul Dharma form condensed would be different due to the different cultivation methods practiced by primordial soul elite warriors. In the ancient times, there were many primordial soul elite warriors in the Tianxian continent. Thus, different kinds of Dharma forms were born. Some primordial soul elite warriors condensed the golden dragon Dharma form, which possessed boundless strength. It could summon the wind and rain, and fight against thunder and lightning. Some people condensed the heavenly dog Dharma form, which could swallow the essence of the moon and stars. There were also people who condensed the primordial giant beast Dharma form, the 5 elemental spirit Dharma form, the heavenly evil poison Dharma form, the 1,000-armed giant Dharma form, and so on. Ji Tianqing did not know much about the primordial soul Dharma form, nor did he have the time to look up the relevant information. However, the Mansion Master had left behind a shadow of his divine consciousness in the golden ball of light. It patiently and carefully explained the information about the primordial soul Dharma form. Now, Ji Tianqing knew that the primordial soul Dharma form condensed by the Mansion Master was called the 8-armed deity Dharma form. Its grade and power far surpassed all the Dharma forms in the world. The reason why the Mansion Master could condense the highest grade and most powerful 8-armed deity Dharma form was because he had mastered the lost art, True Self Dharma form. Tianqing, the True Self Dharma form is a god-level lost art imparted by teacher. If you can concentrate on cultivating it, you will benefit from it for the rest of your life. This lost art will only teach you how to see your true self and identify your true self. It will also teach you the method and shortcut to condensing the primordial soul Dharma form. However, what kind of primordial soul Dharma form you can condense in the end is determined by your talent, potential, and true self. Because of this lost art is called the True Self Dharma form. I hope that when I see you again, you have already broken through the primordial soul realm and condensed your own primordial soul Dharma form. Chapter 1368. Ji Tianqing had only mastered one of the 3 moves that the Mansion Master had imparted to him. He would only be able to cultivate the heaven and earth Dharma body and true self Dharma characteristic when he broke through to the essence soul realm. He memorized the Dharma spells and experiences related to these 2 moves. Then, he began to refine the divine consciousness light ball that the Mansion Master had given him. There was only a vast amount of dharmic power left in this pure and flawless golden divine light, enough to destroy the world. If he were to cultivate in seclusion, he would need at least 2 to 3 years to accumulate such a vast amount of dharmic power. Now, the Mansion Master had directly imparted it to him. He only needed to focus on refining this golden light ball and he would be able to obtain the strongest and purest dharmic power to increase his strength at the fastest speed. As time passed, the golden light ball slowly shrank in size while his strength continued to increase. 1 month, 3 months, 5 months. 10 months passed quickly. When Ji Tianqing finished refining the golden light ball, it was already 10 months later. He used a full 10 months to absorb all the dharmic power that the Mansion Master had given him. There was no doubt that his strength had skyrocketed and reached the 9th level of the spirit refinement realm. He had condensed the 9th spirit Dharma sword. His spirit and dharmic power were even more powerful and his martial Tao foundation was even more solid. No one knew exactly how formidable his combat strength was after reaching the 9th level of the soul refinement realm and mastering 7 secret techniques. But there was one thing that was certain. He only needed 1 move to kill a half-step essence soul realm expert instantly. It was a true instant kill, with both body and soul destroyed. Ji Tianqing stopped cultivating for the time being. He sat in the secret chamber in silence, pondering silently. So far, I have been cultivating in seclusion in this secret chamber for 22 months and my strength has reached the 9th level of the spirit refinement realm. Back then, the Mansion Master said that he would use all the resources of the Imperial residence to maintain the operation of the secret chamber's array and let me cultivate here for 2 years. There are only 2 months left before the 2-year deadline. I can't waste time and I can't let down the Mansion Master's efforts. Thinking of this, he decided not to come out of seclusion for the time being and continue cultivating in seclusion for 2 more months. Although I've already mastered the 7 ultimate secret arts, these are the ultimate skills that my senior martial brothers and senior martial sisters taught me. These secret techniques are only my trump cards. The Tao of Sword Soul is the foundation of my martial path. I can't let it go to waste. Therefore, he continued to cultivate the way of the Sword Soul, nurturing the Divine Soul Magic Sword, perfecting the Divine Lightning Sword domain, and increasing its power. In a short period of time, if one's strength increased too quickly, it would often lead to an unstable foundation. As his strength grew stronger, the weakness of his unstable foundation would become more and more obvious. In the end, it would limit the progress of his strength and stop him from moving forward. He was very clear about this point, so he paid great attention to the consolidation of his martial arts foundation. Unknowingly, 2 months had passed. The 2-year deadline set by the Manor Lord had finally come to an end. The mysterious formation in the secret chamber gradually ran out of power and stopped operating. The mysterious power that filled the secret chamber also quickly dissipated. The invisible spacetime distortion also dissipated in a short time. Ji Tianqing could clearly sense that the secret chamber with miraculous effects had become dull and ordinary in only 10 breaths. It's finally time. This closed-door cultivation is the longest I've ever done in my life. It's been 2 years. But it's also the fastest increase in my strength and the biggest change I've ever experienced. I've been in closed-door cultivation in the secret chamber for 2 years, but only 2.5 months have passed in the outside world. I wonder what the situation in the Tianxian continent is like now? These thoughts flashed across Ji Tianqing's mind. He ended his closed-door cultivation and slowly opened his eyes. On the surface, he didn't seem to have changed much. But in reality, his aura was already as deep as the sea. It was very hidden and reserved. Only primordial soul realm experts could sense that within his body, there was a powerful dermic power that could destroy the heavens and earth. In the eyes of ordinary martial artists, he was like an ordinary person who didn't cultivate. However, his pitch-black eyes were even more profound and vast. They were like an abyss that could devour people's hearts, and also as vast and boundless as the starry sky. Limitless possibilities were hidden in his body. Ji Tianqing changed into a white robe with stars and clouds. He put on a simple 7-star jade crown and tied his waist-length hair into a bun. He put his hands behind his back and walked out of the imperial palace with steady steps. He stood outside the main hall. The guards on both sides of the door were obviously stunned when they saw him. Then, they hurriedly bowed to greet him. "Greetings, Prince Tianqing. Prince Tianqing, there's a letter for you here." Ji Tianqing turned to look at the guard on the left when he heard this. He reached out to take the letter from the other party. The letter was slightly thick. On the envelope made of dark gold rice paper, there were white cloud patterns engraved on it. This was the exclusive envelope of Cloud Spirit Palace. Ji Tianqing immediately understood that this must be a letter from Yunyao. Thus, he accepted the letter and stepped into the sky. He flew 10 miles with each step and quickly left the imperial palace. The 2 guards watched his back as he left. It was a long time before they came back to their senses. Both of them could feel that Ji Tianqing's aura had undergone a mysterious change. It made them feel reverence from the bottom of their hearts. However, that aura was not fierce, nor was it heavy or oppressive. Instead, it had an indescribable sense of mystery. With the strength and vision of the 2 guards, they could not explain it. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing flew back to Tianqing Palace. It had already been a year since he returned to the Sky Air Palace. However, there were always guards guarding the palace. The maids and odd-job workers were in charge of cleaning. All the rooms and courtyards were clean and tidy. He returned to the study and sat by the bright window. Only then did he take out the envelope, take out the letter, and read it carefully. The letter was 8 pages long. It was filled with beautiful and clear small words. It was Yunyao's handwriting. Tianqing's husband, Zhan Sinan. When you received this letter, I had already left with the mansion master. After I returned to Cloud Soul Palace, I argued with my father and mother over this matter for a long time. However, in the end, I could only accept my fate and follow the agreement between Cloud Soul Palace and the mansion master to leave Tianxian continent. Husband, I'm sorry. It was my fate that caused our separation. After I left, I could no longer accompany you. I could not help you resolve your problems and fight against the invasion of the demon race. However, this was not my intention. From the day we became husband and wife, you and I were destined to be together forever. We live in the same bed and die in the same cave. Tianxian continent has already reached its most critical juncture. The human race's territory is in imminent danger. You must be careful. When things are impossible, you must not try to be a hero to avoid regret. If anything happens to you, I don't want to live alone. Before I left, I went to the imperial palace to see the mansion master. I also went to the secret room to see you. At that time, you were at a critical juncture in your cultivation. Your expression was painful, your face was pale, and your entire body was drenched in sweat. I know that you are omnipotent and will never be defeated. No matter how great the pain, you can endure it. No matter how dangerous the situation, you can turn it into safety. I also believe that you will achieve great success in your cultivation. Soon, you will be like Kenshin in the past. You will use your sword to kill the Demon King and save the world. Husband, no matter where I am, I will always remember you and miss you. My heart can only hold you alone, and it will never change in this lifetime. I will wait for you in Shinwu continent forever, until the seas run dry and the rocks crumble. However, if you still do not come to find me when I am strong enough, I will find a way to return to Tianxian continent to find you. Husband, please take care of yourself. Ji Tianqing sat quietly in front of the window and read the letter for a long time. He memorized every word in the letter so that he would never forget it. Chapter 1369. Yunyao had left. She had already left 20 days ago. When he read the letter that Yunyao had left behind, the reluctance and helplessness in her words made Ji Tianqing feel a little sad. However, he did not feel sad, nor did he feel depressed. After all, this was a result that he had expected and had long been destined. Moreover, this temporary separation was for the sake of their next reunion. He believed that it would not be long before he could head to Shinwu continent and meet up with Yunyao. On that continent that was ruled by the gods, there were no demons causing trouble, and there was not so much helplessness and disputes. Perhaps, only there would he and Yunyao be able to stay together and live a peaceful life. Of course, the premise of all this was based on the elimination of the demon's chaos. Yao Yao, wait for me. It won't be long before I come to find you. Ji Tianqing muttered to himself, got up, and left the study. Swoosh! He left Tianqing Palace and flew thousands of feet into the sky, overlooking the mountains below. There were dozens of mountains with spirit veins in the surroundings, and they were the palaces and residences of the dozens of princes. However, after he observed, he found that the palaces were empty and deserted. Most of the princes had already left with their trusted guards. He did not need to guess to know that those princes must have been ordered to return to their respective tribes and fight against the demon army with all their might. He walked around the Emperor Palace again and found that the priests had also left the Emperor Palace. Only 2 priests were left behind to guard the palace. Now that the Emperor Manor is so deserted, it is no longer as sacred and dignified as before. It no longer looks like the sacred land of martial arts in Tianxian continent. It can be seen how tense the situation in the continent is. I'm afraid that the demon army has already invaded Zhongzhou, right? Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and muttered to himself indifferently. With that, he turned and left, flying toward the exit of the Emperor Manor. Swoosh! After a quarter of an hour, he left the Emperor Manor and returned to Zhongzhou city. He flew around the city and found that the situation in the city was much more deserted than 2 months ago. The city was filled with an invisible oppressive aura that made people feel oppressed. In the streets and alleys, there was almost no crowd. Occasionally, some cultivators and commoners would come and go, but all of them had worried looks on their faces, looking anxious and fearful. There were even large numbers of martial artists and commoners gathered near Central State City's southern city gate. Most of these people were humans, all of them dragging their families, bringing their luggage and belongings, lining up in a long line to leave Central Continent City. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing landed in front of the South City gate. He casually found a middle-aged martial artist in the crowd and asked him about the situation. This person was a human male with a dignified face. He had the strength of the Yuan Dan stage and was dressed luxuriously. His manner of speech and mannerisms were not ordinary. It was obvious that he was from a wealthy family. Beside him were 3 young men and women, 2 madams in gorgeous dresses, and more than a dozen capable servants. The servants were leading a few spirit beasts and carrying several large chests, which seemed to be filled with wealth. Ji Tianqing pulled on the middle-aged man and calmly asked, "This brother, it seems like you are preparing to leave Central Continent City and move your entire family to another place." The middle-aged man saw his imposing appearance, his eyes as deep as the sea, and his entire body exuding a mysterious aura. He guessed that his strength was high and his identity was not ordinary. Thus, the middle-aged man cupped his hands in greeting and replied, "This young master, to be honest, not only is my family moving, half of the city's commoners are also leaving." Ji Tianqing frowned and asked in confusion, "Why is this? Central Continent City is the continent's #1 martial arts holy land. It has been peaceful for a long time, so why is everyone moving?" The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment, his expression a bit strange as he said, "Little brother, could it be that you don't know about this matter and haven't heard any news?" "What news?" Ji Tianqing revealed a puzzled expression and explained, "I have been in closed-door cultivation and only came out today, so I don't know about the situation." The middle-aged man was relieved and quickly reminded, "Little brother, the demon race army has already killed their way into Central Continent. Central Continent City is in great danger. In the past 2 months, tens of millions of demon race army marched south, attacking cities and destroying strongholds. No one could stop them. The north has long been covered in corpses, the smell of blood overflowing the sky. Fortunately, my clan's emperor personally led the army and stopped the demon race army outside Tianlong Mountain Pass, otherwise the demon race army would have already killed their way to Central Continent City." Ji Tianqing knew that Tianlong Mountain Pass was to the north of Central Continent City, about 100,000 li away. That was an ancient and majestic pass. Since ancient times, it had always been a place that military strategists would fight for. At the same time, Tianlong Mountain Pass was sandwiched between Central Continent and the mountains in the north, acting as a natural barrier between the demon race and Central Continent. To the north of Tianlong Mountain Pass was an endless mountain range, full of barren hills and unruly rivers, extending all the way to the border. To the south of Tianlong Mountain Pass was the flat land of Central Continent, where dozens of cities were located. Once the demon race army crossed Tianlong Mountain Pass, there would be no more obstacles, and they could march straight to Central Continent City. Understanding this point, Ji Tianqing's face suddenly revealed a shocked expression, shouting in disbelief, "How is this possible? How can the demon race army's offensive be so swift and fierce? Even if the demon race's forces are stronger, it's impossible for them to cross hundreds of thousands of li of territory and kill their way to Tianlong Mountain Pass in just 2 months." The middle-aged man nodded in agreement, "Yes, this humble one has been paying attention to the situation at the border. I also find it unbelievable and very puzzling. However, this humble one has inquired about the news. It is said that the tens of millions of demon race army is the main force, the most elite 10 million lions. Moreover, the commander of the demon race army is not one of those demon commanders. It is said that the demon emperor is personally leading the army. Little brother, you should understand how terrifying the demon emperor is, right? Even the demon emperor personally went into battle. How could my clan soldiers resist? If not for my clan's emperor personally leading the army, I'm afraid that Tianlong Mountain Pass would have already fallen." Speaking up to hear, the middle-aged man looked around, then said in a low voice, "Little brother, don't blame me for not reminding you. You should leave Central Continent City as soon as possible. You can't stay here for long." Although the emperor personally led the army, there are rumors among the people that the demon race army will break through Tianlong Mountain Pass sooner or later, and kill their way to Central Continent City. At that time, it will be too late for you to escape. You are still so young, presumably you are also a descendant of a rich and powerful family. Your future is limitless. If you leave Central Continent City as soon as possible, and flee to the southern continent, where there is life, there is hope. Ji Tianqing understood that this person had good intentions, so he didn't say anything, cupped his hands and thanked him, then turned around and left. He never thought that in just 2 months of secluded cultivation, the situation of the continent would develop to such an extent. The Demon Emperor personally led the army to attack Central Continent. The Central Continent was in imminent danger. Chapter 1370. From the Central Continent city to the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass, the vast expanse of land spanned 100,000 li. One majestic city after another was situated on this vast land, demonstrating the prosperity of the Central Continent in its golden age. However, when Ji Tianqing flew over from the sky and looked down at the majestic cities below, he saw a completely different scene. Every major city was filled with an atmosphere of panic. The common people were dragging their families out of the city, fleeing to the southern continent. Armored city guards wielding swords were guarding the important roads in the city, looking like they were ready for battle. The once bustling city had unexpectedly become deserted. Not a single person could be seen in the streets and alleys. Even the common people who were unwilling to leave were in low spirits. Their mood was pessimistic and despairing, waiting in fear and torment. One city was like this, 2 cities were like this, 3 cities, 5 cities were the same. Ji Tianqing even felt that these cities were shrouded in a layer of haze, a gloomy scene. His mood was also affected, becoming gloomy and oppressive. There was a faint flame throbbing in his chest, stifling a soaring killing intent. He only wanted to slaughter the demon race army wantonly. About 16 hours later, Ji Tianqing finally arrived at the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass. Even though he was still several hundred li away, he could already see the general situation of the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass from the sky. The vast expanse of land spanned over 100,000 li was connected to mountain peaks. If one continued north, there would be a continuous chain of mountains. On the ground 400 li away, there was a huge mountain range extending from the west to the east. It was like an incomparably huge city wall, blocking the mountains and plains. Ji Tianqing had studied the topographic map of the Central Continent, and knew that this huge mountain range was called the Northern Pacifying Mountain Range. The name of this mountain range could be traced back to ancient times, when the demon race was wreaking havoc in the world. The 2 words Northern Pacifying implied the pacification of the North, and also represented the aspirations of the common people of the human race. This mountain range originated from the western wilderness territory of the demon race. It stretched for several million li, with countless branches. Between the northern desert and the Central Continent, there were 2 barriers. The first barrier was the border. The northern settled mountain ranges barrier was the most difficult line of defense for the devil race to cross. The mountain range was thousands of feet high, and there were deep valleys and ravines in the mountain range. The mountain range was very steep and dangerous, and the terrain was very complicated and rugged. For demon warriors above Sky Origin stage, it wasn't a problem at all. They could just fly through the sky. However, among the tens of millions of demons, only a few of them had reached Sky Origin stage, and all of them were demon kings and demon generals. If the devil race wanted to invade the Central Plains and conquer the cities and territories of the human race, just relying on the devil kings and devil generals was not enough. In the end, they had to rely on an army of tens of millions. However, the tens of millions of demons were all below the Heaven Origin realm. Most of them were only at the mystic comprehending realm. As a result, the northern settled mountain range and the treacherous mountains in the north became a great hindrance to the movement of the demon race army. In the towering northern pacifying mountain range, there was a huge canyon that was hundreds of miles long. That was the famous Heaven Dragon Pass. If the demon army wanted to go south to attack the Central Continent, they would have to pass through the Heaven Dragon Pass. Ever since the defense line at the border collapsed, the human army kept retreating and finally retreated to the northern pacifying mountain range. The main force of the human race army was concentrated in the vicinity of the Heaven Dragon Pass, tenaciously resisting with all their might. Everyone knew that once the Heaven Dragon Pass fell, the demon race army would be able to invade the central plains like a ferocious tiger in a flock of sheep, and wantonly slaughter the common people. Therefore, no matter what, the human race army would defend the Heaven Dragon Pass to the death, and fight a bloody battle to the last moment. Ji Tianqing looked down at the northern pacifying mountain range from the sky, and immediately saw the towering and steep Heaven Dragon Pass. The Heaven Dragon Pass, which was hundreds of miles deep and 20 miles wide, was like a gap and natural moat, cutting the northern pacifying mountain range in two. Outside the Heaven Dragon Pass, dark clouds were rolling in the sky, and demonic fog was spreading everywhere. Obviously, a terrifying number of demons had gathered there. The strong and pungent smell of blood was carried by the whistling north wind, and was unceasingly coming. Inside the Heaven Dragon Pass, the land within a radius of 300 miles was densely packed with military tents and houses. Millions of human soldiers were stationed there. On the mountain range on both sides of the pass, millions of human soldiers were also stationed there. Along the mountain range, a 1,000 miles long line of defense was spread out. Ji Tianqing's eyes swept around the Heaven Dragon Pass, and saw that the ground and the mountain range were full of human figures, densely packed like a colony of ants. Even in the sky above the pass, there were tens of thousands of elite experts, riding on spirit birds, cruising and patrolling, and monitoring the movements around. In addition, he also saw a golden light barrier in the Heaven Dragon Pass, like a light ball with a radius of 200 miles, protecting the entire Heaven Dragon Pass. That was a defensive formation, used to protect the Heaven Dragon Pass and resist the demon race army. It had existed since the ancient times. Even though he was hundreds of miles away, Ji Tianqing could clearly sense that the energy fluctuations emitted by the defensive formation were very powerful and vast. With his attainments in formations, of course, he could tell that it was a primordial soul-level formation, and its power was extraordinary. Swoosh! He slowed down his flying speed, and flew over the military tents, and observed the situation in the camp. He saw tens of thousands of military tents and houses, scattered over hundreds of miles of land. Outside each tent and house, there were elite soldiers guarding. Groups of armored soldiers, holding spears and halberds, shuttled back and forth in the camp, nervously and vigilantly. There were also many sergeants, moving like the wind, carrying many seriously injured soldiers from the front line, and sending them back to the camp for treatment. The entire human camp was filled with tension, depression, and austere atmosphere. Everyone's nerves were taut, and they were very alert and vigilant. Even the soldiers who were resting in the camp were also wearing their armor, ready to fight at any time. Just as Ji Tianqing was observing the situation in the camp, a group of black-armored soldiers riding spirit beasts quickly flew over, and surrounded him. "Who are you?" The leader of the group rode on the flying bird spirit beast. He took a step forward and stopped in front of Ji Tianqing, then asked in a stern voice. Ji Tianqing took out the seal of mountains and rivers expressionlessly, and said majestically, "I am Ji Tianqing, the lord of the Heaven Dragon territory." The leader's face suddenly changed. After seeing the seal of the territory lord, he immediately saluted respectfully with his hands folded. Ji Tianqing put away the seal of mountains and rivers, and said majestically, "Are the emperor and the imperial tutor in the camp?" "This." The leader suddenly looked embarrassed, and hurriedly explained, "Your Excellency, I am just a small patrol leader, and I am not qualified to know the whereabouts of the emperor." Ji Tianqing thought that it made sense. The emperor and the imperial tutor were too high in status. Except for the generals, no one could get in touch with them. Chapter 1371. The demon army had arrived at Tianlong Pass, and the situation was so critical. Emperor Long Yunxiao naturally had to lead the army to participate in the battle. The millions of human soldiers were divided into 8 groups, each led by 8 commanders. Long Yunxiao was one of the 8 commanders, and he was in charge of the Flying Dragon camp's main tent. The patrol captain brought Ji Tianqing to the Flying Dragon camp, then turned and left. After verifying his identity, a general of the Flying Dragon camp personally brought him to the main tent to see Long Yunxiao. When Ji Tianqing entered the main tent and saw Long Yunxiao was standing beside a large sand table, discussing military affairs with a dozen or so generals. "Emperor, how have you been?" Ji Tianqing calmly walked to the sand table and greeted Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao lowered his head and looked at the sand table, thinking about something. Suddenly hearing Ji Tianqing's voice, his body shook, and he quickly raised his head to look at the door. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had arrived, his eyes shone brightly, and his spirits were instantly lifted up a little. "Tianqing, you've finally come out of seclusion. Great, you've come just in time." As he spoke, he walked toward Ji Tianqing and cupped his hands to salute him. After the two greeted each other, he pulled Ji Tianqing to the sand table and introduced Ji Tianqing to everyone. When the dozen or so generals learned that the person who came was Ji Tianqing, they immediately showed excitement and reverence, and saluted him one after another. "Greetings, Lord Ji. Greetings, Prince Tianqing. I really didn't expect you to come here personally. Prince Tianqing's fame has long spread across the continent like thunder. I didn't expect to see you in person today. I'm really honored." All the generals were very respectful to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing exchanged a few pleasantries with the generals and quickly got to the main topic of their discussion. "Son of Heaven, I just came out of my closed-door training today and got the news that the Devil Race's army has invaded the Tianlong Mountain Pass, so I quickly rushed over. Along the way, I saw that the people in the various cities were in a state of panic. The people were fleeing their homes to hide in the south. What was the current situation in the Heaven Dragon Pass? What about the movements of the demon army?" Long Yunxiao nodded and said with a grave expression, "Tianqing, it's not just the cities you passed by. The people of the hundreds of cities in the Central Plains are in a state of panic. They are in a precarious situation. After the demon race army broke through the defense line at the border, they rushed south for hundreds of thousands of li, occupying hundreds of cities and towns along the way and slaughtering millions of our people. Now, the north of Tianlong Mountain Pass had been lost. Wherever the Devil Race army passed, the people were in a terrible situation. Not even a blade of grass grew. It was simply like a miserable purgatory on earth." As the news spread, the people of the Central Plains were all terrified. There are even rumors among the people that our clan's army will definitely not be able to defend Tianlong Mountain Pass, and will soon fall. When that time comes, the entire central province will fall. Deluding the people with lies. Ji Tianqing's face darkened. He shouted with a cold voice, "Those bastards who added fuel to the fire, spread rumors, and deluded the people should be severely punished." Long Yunxiao nodded in agreement and said, "That's right. 10 days ago, I was in the Central Plains, comforting the people of our clan. I also ordered a group of people who spread rumors to be severely punished. Unfortunately, I couldn't stop the news from spreading. On the contrary, it made the people even more panicked. Alas, for now, I can only obey the Emperor's order and ignore the people of the Central Plains, rushing to the Tianlong Mountain Pass to defend against the enemy." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said in a sonorous voice, "Tianlong Mountain Pass is the last line of defense of our clan. No matter what, we can't lose it. Even if all the soldiers of our clan die here, we will fight to the last moment and not yield an inch." His tone was firm and forceful, powerful and resonant. Immediately, all the generals felt their blood boil, and their eyes burned with fighting spirit. Long Yunxiao looked at him deeply and thought, Tianqing's strength has become even more unfathomable after his seclusion. There is also a mysterious temperament around him, just like the emperor. He frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he suddenly realized and exclaimed in his heart, I understand now. Tianqing's temperament is the temperament of a leader. Just a moment ago, the generals were full of sadness and pessimism. But after Tianqing arrived, with just a few words, he rekindled everyone's hope and fighting spirit. This is the temperament of a leader. It has invisibly infected them. Understanding this point, Long Yunxiao was even more shocked. He was very clear that there were many martial arts experts on the continent, but there were very few who had the temperament of a leader. Only the Palace Master, the Emperor, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the Heavenly Demon Emperor had such a powerful aura. Now, there was also Ji Tianqing. After a moment of silence, Long Yunxiao calmed down and pointed to the sand table in front of him and said, Tianqing, you've just arrived at the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass, so you definitely don't know the situation of the war. Let me introduce you, I'm all ears. Ji Tianqing nodded and looked at the sand table with calm and wise eyes. The sand table with a radius of a few meters clearly simulated the topographic map of the area with a radius of 10,000 miles. From the northern pacifying mountain range and the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass to the small peaks, valleys, and rivers within 10,000 miles, the simulation was very lifelike. On the flat ground south of the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass, there were 8 small golden flags, each engraved with a few lines of small words. Long Yunxiao pointed to the area and said, Tianqing, we've now gathered a total of 10 million troops south of the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass. The Emperor has sent 2 million troops to the east and west sides of the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass, along the mountain range, and set up many sentry posts and barracks to prevent the demon army from crossing the northern pacifying mountain range. The remaining 8 million troops are stationed under the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass and are divided into 8 barracks, each under the command of 8 commanders. Ji Tianqing slightly nodded and asked, who are the 8 commanders? Long Yunxiao replied, I'm the commander of the Flying Dragon Camp, with over 1 million soldiers under my command. They are all elite troops gathered by the imperial court from the central continent. Divine General Xiaofan of the East Woods Camp, with 800,000 troops under his command, all of which were gathered from the eastern continent. Additionally, Yun Zhongqi is the commander of the Storm Camp, with tens of thousands of elites from the Cloud Spirit Palace and 1 million soldiers from the central continent. Divine General Wang Yu is the commander of the Mid-Court Camp, with 1 million soldiers under his command. The Divine General of the North and the new Divine General of the West each lead 1 million soldiers, most of which are the remnants of the soldiers who retreated from the border. There are also 2 million soldiers under the command of 2 Grand Marshals of the Imperial Court. The 2 Grand Marshals are this monarch's uncles, monarchs with real power in the Imperial Court. They are loyal to the Imperial Court and have both served as Grand Marshals. Their strength has also reached the 5th level of the Spirit Refinement Realm. Ji Tianqing immediately understood. The commanders of the 8 million human army were Long Yunxiao, Yun Zhongqi, the Divine General of the 4 Directions, and the 2 Grand Marshals. He stared at the sand table and looked past the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass to the area north of the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass. The area was filled with towering mountains and steep terrain, but it was filled with small black flags, giving off a dense demonic aura. Chapter 1372. The Demon Army. Long Yunxiao's face turned serious and his eyes turned cold when he mentioned the Demon Army. He paused and said in a low voice, we can't find out the exact number of the Demon Army, but according to the clues we have, we can make a rough estimate. Ji Tianqing stared at the sand table and asked without raising his head, how many? Long Yunxiao said word by word, 30 million. Ji Tianqing frowned and a cold light flashed in his eyes. 30 million devil soldiers, how can we defend Tianlong Mountain Pass with only 8 million soldiers of our race? Long Yunxiao looked troubled and said helplessly, the demon army slowed down their attack on the Water Tribe and the Demon Clan and gathered their elite forces to attack us. We can only defend. Even if the imperial court has 80 million soldiers, they have to defend the border. We have no choice, our territory is the largest and there are too many places we need to station and defend. The imperial emperor can transfer 8 million soldiers to defend Tianlong Pass, this is the limit of the imperial court. Ji Tianqing understood this and couldn't say anything else. He continued to ask, who is the demon army's commander? I heard the news in Zhongzhou city that the demon king has gone out personally. Long Yunxiao shook his head and said in a low voice, so far, the ancient demon king hasn't shown his face. The imperial emperor and the imperial tutor have searched for him but couldn't sense his aura. On the surface, it seems that the ancient demon king hasn't come to Tianlong Pass, but what? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and turned to look at him. Long Yunxiao hesitated for a moment and said, although we didn't see the demon king, we saw his mount, the nether-suppressing soul beast. Nether-suppressing soul beast? Ji Tianqing's brows furrowed tightly as a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Isn't that the legendary guardian beast that guards the netherworld? Long Yunxiao nodded and then shook his head and explained, the legendary nether-suppressing soul beast is of course the guardian beast of the nether hell. It's a divine beast comparable to the gods. The fiend emperor's mount was, of course, not a divine beast, but it had the strength of the primordial spirit realm. The nether-suppressing soul beast had been slumbering in the devil race's sacred mountain for 1,000 years. 7 days ago, the divine general of the northern frontier led his army out of the Heaven Dragon Pass and took the initiative to attack, but was repelled by the nether-suppressing soul beast. That was the first time the netherworld-suppressing soul beast had appeared. It was able to cause the heaven and earth within 1,000 miles to change. It released soul flames and netherworld cold energy that overflowed into the heavens. In the blink of an eye, it had annihilated an army of over 100,000. Even the divine general of the northern frontier was injured by the cold air of the underworld and is still recuperating in seclusion in the camp. Ji Tianqing revealed a worried look and said worriedly, although the nether-subduing soul beast only has the power of the primordial soul realm, it is already invincible in the Tianxian land and is equivalent to a divine beast. Long Yunxiao continued, on the surface, the commander of the 30 million demon army is Grand Jia Luo, Brahma Soul Nightmare, who is attached to the demon god scepter. There are also 6 demon marshals and 4 venerables. However, the nether-subduing soul beast cannot be the highest commander. Its appearance most likely proves that the demon emperor is in the army, he just hasn't shown himself yet. Ji Tianqing nodded to express his understanding and said in a low voice, if the demon emperor has truly come, then the demon clan has turned out in full force. All the elite warriors have arrived. Regardless of the number of soldiers or the number of elite warriors, the demon clan has the absolute advantage. They can even crush our clan. Son of Heaven, what is the emperor's plan and arrangement? In order to keep it a secret, Long Yunxiao transmitted his voice again. Half a month ago, the demon clan army arrived at the Heaven Dragon Pass. Our 8 million soldiers have also gathered. Both sides are in a deadlock. In the next 8 days, the demon clan army launched a dozen of strong attacks, vowing to break through the Heaven Dragon Pass. However, the Heaven Dragon Pass has the great ancient formation set up by the ancestors of the imperial court. It has great power and blocked the fierce attacks of the demon clan army. Now, our clan only needs to maintain the operation of the great ancient formation, and the demon clan army cannot break through the pass. However, the great ancient formation can only be maintained for about a month, and then its power will be greatly weakened. It will be shut down when its power is exhausted. When Ji Tianqing heard this, his complexion became even more unsightly. Originally, I thought that by relying on the support of the great ancient formation, our clan could block the demon clan army and be in a deadlock with them. So it seems that our clan can only hold on for half a month at most, and then the great ancient formation will be exhausted? Long Yunxiao nodded and explained, in fact, even if the great ancient formation can hold on for 3 to 5 months, it will be useless. The Demon Clan army can't stay here forever. After all, if the Demon Clan army wants to kill their way into the central continent, they have 3 checkpoints to break through. The Heaven Dragon Pass is the closest checkpoint, but it is not the only entrance. The other 2 checkpoints are the Mangu mountain range near the West Wilderness and the Heaven Dragon Pass near the East Sea. Ji Tianqing stared blankly for a moment, then immediately nodded in agreement and said, "That makes sense. If the Demon Clan can't break through the Heaven Dragon Pass, it is very likely that they will give up attacking the Heaven Dragon Pass. If the Demon Clan attacks the Mangu mountain range or the Heaven Dragon Pass, the probability of success will be even greater. However, if they take a detour, it will take them a few more months." "That's right." Long Yunxiao sighed with a heavy heart and said, "Therefore, we can't stay inside the Heaven Dragon Pass. We must take the initiative to attack and attract the main force of the Demon Clan army to stay here. Only then will we not let the Mangu mountain range and the Heaven Dragon Pass fall. However, every time our army takes the initiative to attack, we will return in defeat, and at least hundreds of thousands of soldiers will lose their lives. In just half a month, our clan has already sacrificed millions of soldiers. Their corpses are piled up like mountains, and their blood has already flowed into a river. Now both sides are in a deadlock, but if we continue like this, it won't be long before the 8 million soldiers of our clan will be exhausted." Ji Tianqing was silent for a while, then said, "Take me to see the Emperor. I want to discuss this matter with the Emperor. Maybe there will be a turn for the better." "Okay." Long Yunxiao nodded and agreed without hesitation. He said a few words to the generals, then took Ji Tianqing and left the central tent, flying towards the depths of the camp. When they were flying over the camp, Long Yunxiao thought of another matter, then transmitted his voice to Ji Tianqing, "That's right, other than the experts and soldiers under the imperial court, the people from the imperial court's mansion have also come. Now, Great God Master He Yu is also in the camp. He has 5 God Masters and more than 40 princes under his command. Everyone is bravely participating in the battle, resisting the Demon Clan army with all their strength. Kun Wu and Fox Princess of the Demon Clan, Prince Tai Yi of the Water Clan, they have all come to help. I have even met them before. After you meet the Emperor, you can go find Great God Master He Yu. Maybe he has something to say to you." Chapter 1373. The Emperor and the Imperial Tutor were located in the deepest part of the military camp, in a solemn black palace. Although this palace was built temporarily, it was still grand and heavily guarded. Coincidentally, when Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao arrived, the Emperor and the commanders were having a meeting in the palace. The 4 godly generals, Yun Zhongqi, and the 2 old marshals were all present. Even divine teacher He Yu was present. The Emperor sat on the throne in the north of the palace. The white-robed imperial tutor stood beside the throne with a horsetail whisk in his hand. In the palace, divine teacher He Yu stood on the left side of the throne. Beside him were Yun Zhongqi and the 2 old marshals. The 4 godly generals stood on the right side of the palace, looking at the Emperor with a solemn expression, waiting for the Emperor to make a decision. When Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao stepped through the door and entered the hall, everyone turned their heads to look at them. Almost everyone's gaze was focused on Ji Tianqing, sizing him up with a complicated expression. Some people looked at him curiously, some people looked at him with joy and anticipation, and some people looked calm and indifferent. Ji Tianqing walked to the center of the palace and bowed to the Emperor. Ji Tianqing pays his respects to His Majesty the Emperor. The Emperor gazed at him, the coldness and majesty on his face immediately softened. He nodded slightly. "Tianqing, you may rise. You're finally here. Looks like your skills have improved again. The demon army has already reached the Tianlong Pass. You should know the current situation, right?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said calmly, Emperor has already introduced me. The Emperor nodded slightly. Since that is the case, there is no need for me to say anything more. Now, we can only defend the Tianlong Pass to the death and not yield an inch of land. While defending the Tianlong Pass, we have to take the initiative to attack. We have to find a flaw in the demon army and strive to create an opportunity to repel them. All the commanders nodded silently, agreeing with the Emperor's words. Great God Master He Yu shook his head and said expressionlessly, Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but I'm afraid it's very difficult. The army of 30 million demons was stationed outside the Tianlong mountain pass. They occupied 30 mountain peaks and dug out demon nests inside the mountains. They relied on each other's strength and secretly communicated with each other. The Devil Race's meticulously built camp contains the mysteries of the Big Dipper star formation. It's almost invulnerable. Great God Master He Yu represented the monarch mansion. His status was extraordinary, and sometimes, he could even talk to the monarch as an equal. Therefore, he was not like the other commanders who had to consider the hierarchy. Hearing his words, a white-bearded old man beside him frowned and said, Great Divine Master, you are clearly boosting the morale of the Devil Race and destroying the prestige of our race. Even if the demon race's military strength is far greater than ours, we must not be pessimistic and despair. We must defend Tianlong Mountain Pass even if we have to die. This person was Long Yunxiao's uncle, the imperial court's Prince Xiao. He had once served as the Grand Marshal of the army. He had a noble status and an imposing aura. The 4 divine generals nodded and agreed with his words. Great God Master He Yu was still expressionless. He looked at the monarch and said calmly, Monarch, since you think that we can't fight the demon race head-on and can only think of ways to find opportunities and loopholes, then I still insist on my previous proposal. Only primordial spirit realm experts can sneak into the demon race's camp quietly and investigate the matter clearly, as well as inquire about the demon race's camp. Anyone below the primordial spirit realm who sneaks into the demon race's camp will be detected by the demon race experts and eventually be surrounded and killed. When his voice fell, Yun Zhongqi and the other divine generals frowned and their faces turned ugly. Another white-haired old man in golden armor showed a displeased expression and said in a deep voice, Great Divine Master, the monarch is the monarch of our race, the leader of millions of people. How noble is the monarch's status? How can he sneak into the demon race's camp alone and inquire about the news himself? This old man in golden armor was one of the 2 old marshals, the imperial court's Yi Qin Wang. Yun Zhongqi also took a step forward and said firmly, Great Divine Master, your proposal is indeed inappropriate. I'm afraid it can't be carried out. The monarch is the leader of our race. How can he put himself in danger? If anything happens to the monarch, who can lead the army to resist the invasion of the demon race's army and save the central region? The 4 divine generals also spoke up and refuted Great God Master He Yu's proposal. Ji Tianqing had just arrived and didn't know what everyone was talking about. Seeing the few marshals and Great God Master He Yu arguing, he was instantly filled with doubts. He asked in a deep and dignified voice, Everyone, please forgive me for being rude. What was everyone talking about just now? Why did you send people to sneak into the demon race's camp to inquire about the news? Hearing his voice, everyone in the hall immediately quieted down and shut their mouths. As his father-in-law, Yun Zhongqi had the closest relationship with him. He took the initiative to explain, Tianqing, you don't know. It's like this. The demon race's camp is hidden in the mountains and coincides with the profundity of the Big Dipper star formation. It has a strong defense and is very hidden, so we can't inquire about the specific situation. However, starting from 10 days ago, strange sounds would come from the depths of the demon race's camp every night. The sounds seemed to come from the abyss of hell. It was like the cries of 10,000 demons and the dance of ghosts. It made one's hair stand on end and soul tremble. No one knew the source of the strange sounds and what it meant. However, we all agreed that there must be some secret hidden in the demon race's camp, or the demon race is plotting something. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing vaguely understood. He nodded and said, I understand. So everyone wants to send people to sneak into the demon race's camp to investigate this matter and find out the demon race's movements. However, there are many experts in the demon race's camp, and there is no lack of experts in the primordial spirit realm. Even soul refinement realm experts will be exposed if they sneak into the demon race's camp and be killed by the demon race experts. In our race, only His Majesty the Celestial Emperor is the strongest. Only he can hope to sneak into the demon race's camp and investigate this matter. Yun Zhongqi nodded and said, exactly. However, the Celestial Emperor is of noble status and the leader of our army. How can he personally investigate this matter? Ji Tianqing looked at the Celestial Emperor and the Imperial Tutor, then at the commanders in the hall. He said calmly, leave this matter to me. Hearing this, everyone was shocked, and they all revealed a look of astonishment. You haven't reached the primordial spirit realm yet. Aren't you just going to die? Tianqing, we can understand how you feel, but now is not the time to show off. Not only are there 6 demon marshals in the demon race's camp, there are also 4 primordial spirit realm venerables and a nether suppressing soul beast. Tianqing, although you are the #1 genius of the continent, you are still too young. There is no way you can fool the demon race experts. Yun Zhongqi, Long Yunshao, and the 4 divine generals all had worried expressions as they tried to persuade Ji Tianqing. Chapter 1374. Everyone tried to dissuade Ji Tianqing, but the Emperor, Imperial Tutor, and God Master He Yu didn't express their opinions. Ji Tianqing saw that all the commanders were against it, so he said firmly, Seniors, the Emperor will definitely not go there personally. I am the most suitable person for this mission. Although I have yet to reach the Essence Soul realm, I am already at the 9th level of the Spirit Refinement realm. My combat power is comparable to an expert at the 1st or 2nd level of the Essence Soul realm. Furthermore, I once entered the northern desert alone and barged into the demon race's sacred mountain. I saved my wife right under the nose of the demon emperor. I have a better understanding of the demon race and can even speak some simple and commonly used demon race language. Please believe that I will definitely not put my life on the line. Since I have made this decision, I have the corresponding confidence. Everyone didn't doubt his words and fell into silence after hearing it. The hall immediately quieted down. Many of the commanders frowned, silently weighing the pros and cons of the situation. God Master He Yu looked at Ji Tianqing and asked solemnly, Tianqing, how confident are you? Ji Tianqing considered seriously and said, 60%. God Master He Yu nodded and didn't say anything else. It was considered that he had acknowledged this matter. After all, he only had 50% confidence when he personally infiltrated the demon race's camp to investigate the situation. He had carefully observed Ji Tianqing's strength and divine soul and already had a conclusion in his heart. Ji Tianqing's current strength wasn't inferior to his at all. In fact, his combat power was even stronger than his. Everyone was silent for a while and looked up at the emperor on the main seat. Whether Ji Tianqing's suggestion was accepted or not depended on the emperor's decision. The emperor looked at Ji Tianqing with a deep gaze and said solemnly, Tianqing, theoretically speaking, you are the most suitable person for this mission and have a higher chance of success. However, I have to remind you that there are many experts in the demon race's camp. The ancient demon emperor might be present as well. You have to be careful. If things don't go well, you have to leave as soon as possible. Our situation is already so critical. If anything happens to you, we can't afford such a heavy loss. The emperor's words immediately shocked everyone, and they all revealed a complicated look. It was obvious that Ji Tianqing held an important position in the emperor's heart. Ji Tianqing bowed to the emperor and said solemnly, Tianqing obeys the emperor's order. The emperor nodded. He waved his sleeve and ordered, since that's the case, go make your preparations and set off as soon as possible. Tianqing cupped his hands and took his leave, pulling Long Yunxiao along as they left the conference hall. When the two of them walked out of the hall, Long Yunxiao asked worriedly, Tianqing, are you really going to sneak into the devil camp alone? Do you want me to send you a few attendants to help you? Tianqing waved his hand and said with a calm expression, the more people there are, the more dangerous it is. If I move alone, the demon race will not be able to detect me. Long Yunxiao also understood this, so he didn't try to dissuade him anymore. He asked, what's your plan? How are you going to sneak in? The corner of Tianqing's mouth hooked up into a playful smile, and said to him, I'll need your help. I need the body of a demon king expert to be able to move smoothly. Long Yunxiao understood the moment he heard. He hurriedly nodded and said, all right, that's no problem. When the two armies were fighting, we captured a group of demon race captives, and there were more than 10 demon kings among them. After that, he took Tianqing back to the Flying Dragon camp, took out a captive from the dungeon, and handed him over to Tianqing. This captive was in the 7th level of Sky Origin stage. He was a demon king who was the leader of a tribe. He held the position of deputy general in the demon race's army and commanded tens of thousands of demon race soldiers. After Tianqing understood the demon king's identity, he smashed his soul with one palm and killed him on the spot. After the demon king was killed, his body was still intact. Tianqing took out his divine soul and entered the demon king's body. He controlled the demon king's body and used it freely. In order to hide and keep it a secret, he put his body into the sword world. Moreover, he also used the burial of heaven's sword and the celestial fire cauldron to hide the aura of his divine soul to the extreme. Long Yunxiao stood in front of him and didn't feel anything strange. He couldn't see any flaw at all. This is incredible. Tianqing, you actually concealed the aura of your divine soul perfectly. Not only can the soul-refining stage demon race's experts not see any flaw, even the primordial spirit stage demon race's experts can't see any flaw if they don't use a secret method to investigate you. Long Yunxiao's face was full of amazement. He admired Tianqing's camouflage ability very much. Tianqing nodded and said in a serious tone, it's getting late. It's already dark. I have to act as soon as possible. Long Yunxiao quickly escorted him out of the Flying Dragon camp and rushed to the northern mountain range. Tianqing, now that you've disguised yourself as a demon king, you can't go out of the Heaven Dragon Pass. This lord will take you further away. You have to secretly pass through the northern mountain range to quietly sneak into the demon race's camp. Don't worry, this lord will send people to stand guard there and wait to receive you. After half a quarter of an hour, the two flew to the foot of the northern mountain range and stopped 400 miles away from the Heaven Dragon Pass. In front of them was the majestic northern mountain range, surrounded by valleys and forests. There were human soldiers guarding the mountain range and forests. In the night sky, there were also elite experts riding birds and spirit beasts patrolling. Tianqing warned Long Yunxiao a few times and then cast a spell to escape into the dark brown earth. Inside and outside the northern mountain range, there were formations set up by human soldiers to guard against the demon race's invasion. The defensive power of those formations was not strong, but they had the function of warning and warning. Tianqing bypassed those formations and drilled into the dark depths of the earth, all the way to the north. He estimated the distance in his heart and sneaked about 500 miles underground. Then, he left the depths of the earth and returned to the surface. Swish! He quietly drilled out of the ground and appeared in the dark night sky. At this time, he was at the foot of a huge mountain, standing on a piece of barren brown earth. The demon race's camp was located in a radius of 1,000 miles, and this was the center of the camp. Originally, this huge mountain was covered in lush forests and grasslands. But a great battle had occurred here, so the forests and grasslands were destroyed. Half of the mountain peak had collapsed, just like a ruin. Moreover, there were tens of millions of demon race gathered in a radius of 1,000 miles. The world was covered in darkness, and the air was filled with cold demon qi. Ji Tianqing had just seen the situation around him and was still considering his next move. At this time, a dark red blood cloud rushed over from the distance. There were 6 figures of demon race in the blood cloud. The leader was a demon commander at the 5th layer of the soul refining realm. The other 5 were all elite demon kings. When the dark red blood cloud passed over Ji Tianqing's head, it found him standing on the wasteland and stopped. The middle-aged demon commander in the lead angrily shouted, "Scoundrel, what are you standing there for?" Chapter 1375. Upon hearing the word sacrificial ceremony, Ji Tianqing's pupils constricted as he vaguely guessed at something. He hurriedly put on an expression of fear and reverence as he flew into the night sky, following the demon commander and the 5 demon kings as they flew forward. The group tore through the night sky as fast as lightning, heading straight for the 1,000-zhang tall peak in the middle of the mountain range. As they hurried, Ji Tianqing secretly observed the situation of the demon race camp. He saw that the mountains and ravines in all directions were barren and barren. On the gray-brown mountains and rivers, demon soldiers in black armor could be seen patrolling the perimeter, wielding spears and large sabers. In the night sky covered in black clouds, an extremely dense demon fog shrouded an area of 1,000 li, obscuring the radiance of the sun, moon, and stars. More than 100 enormous dark red eyeballs hung in the night sky like stars, overlooking the demon race camp below and monitoring all movements within. The red light emitted by those dark red eyeballs shone on the mountains and rivers, covering the entire demon race camp in a layer of blood. No matter how one looked at it, the demon race camp was filled with a ghostly aura, like a sinister and terrifying purgatory. However, only a minority of the demon race were active on the ground. They were all patrolling and guarding sentries. The tens of millions of demon race soldiers were not stationed on the ground, but were hidden underground in the darkness. Ji Tianqing had just joined the demon race camp, so he did not dare to act rashly. He did not release his spiritual energy to investigate the situation underground. But he did not need to look to know that the demon race army had dug countless tunnels underground, constructing many demon caves and underground cities for them to live in. This was a habit formed by the demon race over tens of millions of years. Whether it was in the northern desert or in the central continent, this deep-rooted habit could not be changed. Not long after, the middle-aged demon commander led Ji Tianqing and the others to land on the 1,000-zhang tall peak. This isolated mountain was guarded by at least 10,000 demon race elites. The defense was extremely tight. Moreover, the mountain was faintly suffused with red light, and black clouds of demon qi soared into the sky. There were also bursts of sobbing sounds. Invisible waves of sound came from underground, sounding extremely oppressive and strange. It was as if tens of thousands of evil spirits were crying and howling in hell. Ji Tianqing listened carefully for a moment, but he could not understand the meaning of those voices, nor did he know what was going on. Shua. The middle-aged demon commander led Ji Tianqing and the others into a dark cave halfway up the mountain. There were more than 10 heavenly origin stage devil kings guarding the 2 sides of the cave. They had even set up a soul-level defensive array. "Greetings, Demon General Wuxian." When they saw the middle-aged demon marshal, the demon kings guarding the cave all bowed respectfully to him. Demon General Wuxian waved his hand, indicating for the demon kings to rise. Then, he led Ji Tianqing and the others into the demon cave. They followed the dimly lit demon cave and headed underground. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change as he traveled in silence. But in his heart, he thought, previously, other than the Devil Emperor and the Nightmare Demon, there were also the 6 great Devil Marshals and the Ghost Emperor. But I've killed 4 of the 6 great devil marshals and even the Ghost Emperor. Only Demon General Broken Soul and Demon General Dark Knight are left. I didn't expect the devil race to have a few more soul-tempering stage experts in just 2 years. The Devil Emperor made them the new Demon Marshals. Clearly, Demon General Wuxian had only been promoted to Demon General in the past 2 years. Before this, Ji Tianqing had never heard of his name. Of course, with his current strength, he did not care about those few soul-tempering stage devil marshals. The only ones who could truly pose a threat to him were the 4 venerables, the blood god sons and the ancient demon emperor. Soon, Demon General Wuxian led Ji Tianqing and the others through dozens of miles of tunnels and into the depths of the underground. Along the way, Ji Tianqing discovered that there were indeed many tunnels underground. They were interconnected and extended in all directions, forming a huge underground city. Every intersection of the tunnels was guarded by demon soldiers. Although a large number of demon soldiers lived in the underground demon cave, it was not noisy or chaotic. The demon soldiers were all silent and had cold and dull personalities. They carried out their tasks quietly or rested in an orderly manner. Only that dull and strange sound kept coming from the depths of the underground. It was like a demonic sound that pierced through one's brain, reverberating in Ji Tianqing's mind. The deeper they went, the more ear-splitting the dull sound waves were, making one feel uneasy. Unknowingly, 15 minutes passed. Demon General Wuxian led Ji Tianqing and the others to a depth of 90 miles underground and finally stopped. At the end of the tunnel was a huge cave with a radius of 15 miles. The walls of the cave were inlaid with blood-red gems that emitted a dark red glow. The ground of the cave was still flat, like an empty wasteland. It was shrouded in a dark red glow and appeared especially eerie. At least 100,000 demon soldiers gathered in the wasteland. They were like a pitch-black tide or a black colony of ants. These demon soldiers were all dressed in black armor. They were arranged in neat rows and all of them knelt on the ground, kowtowing towards the center of the wasteland. Every time they kowtowed, they would solemnly pray and recite the ancient and obscure language of the demon race. The low chants and prayers of 100,000 people converged into a formless sound wave that reverberated in the wasteland and spread in all directions. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing finally understood that the cries of the demon soldiers he had heard earlier were coming from here. At least 100,000 demon soldiers gathered here, kowtowing and praying in a mysterious manner. No wonder the sound waves spread from the depths of the earth. Even the human camp south of Heaven Dragon Pass could hear them. Could this be the sacrificial ceremony that Demon General Wuxian spoke of? These thoughts flashed through his mind. He frowned and looked towards the center of the wasteland. He wanted to see what the 100,000 demon soldiers were kowtowing to. What was the sacrificial ceremony that Demon General Wuxian spoke of? But at this moment, Demon General Wuxian glanced at him and the other demon kings. He ordered in a low voice, "The sacrificial ceremony is the most sacred and solemn event of our race. Later, all of you better behave yourselves, Ben Shui. Don't look around. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. You must be respectful. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died." The demon kings were observing the situation in the wasteland. When they heard Demon General Wuxian's words, they shrunk their necks in fear. They lowered their heads and hurried on their way. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change, but he was more and more puzzled and expectant. Under Demon General Wuxian's lead, the group stepped onto the dark brown wasteland. They passed through the many demon soldiers and walked towards the center of the wasteland. Ji Tianqing silently hurried on. He quietly observed the situation around the wasteland and memorized the layout. Soon, he clearly sensed that there were not only 100,000 demon soldiers on the wasteland, but also several experts of the spirit refinement realm and above. In the center of the wasteland, there were also 3 extremely powerful auras that suppressed the entire area. Chapter 1376. When Demon Commander Wuxian brought Ji Tianqing and the rest to the middle of the wilderness, Ji Tianqing saw the scene clearly. A gigantic altar with a radius of 5 kilometers was built in the middle of the dark brown wilderness. The base of the altar was made of dark gold and black bricks. Tens of thousands of blood essence stones and all sorts of gems were embedded in it. The altar formation was in operation and shone with a layer of dark red light that enveloped the entire altar. The altar was in the shape of a pyramid and there were 999 steps from the bottom to the top of the altar. Clearly, there was a deeper meaning behind such an arrangement and layout, as if it was accumulating some sort of power. At the top of the altar was a circular blood pool with a radius of 1,000 meters. The gigantic blood pool was filled with dark red blood. It was sticky and gave off a pungent smell of blood. For soul-tempering fiend experts at the soul-tempering realm sat around the blood pool and were focused on channeling their arts. They were using some sort of evil secret technique to inject a massive amount of power into the blood pool. The dark red blood seemed to be boiling as it churned violently and released wisps of blood chi. Apart from the 4 soul-tempering fiend marshals, there were 2 gigantic beasts that looked like devils and were 100 feet tall. They guarded the north and south ends of the blood pool respectively. The bodies of the 2 gigantic beasts were formed from blood light and looked both real and illusory. They had 4 arms, 4 legs and 2 pairs of wide wings. Their faces were menacing and they exuded an extremely powerful aura. Ji Tianqing guessed their identities the moment he saw them. Blood God sons. Furthermore, they were the strongest blood God sons. Their strength had reached the 2nd firmament essence spirit realm and they were conferred the title of supremacy by the Fiend Emperor. However, Ji Tianqing's gaze only lingered on the 2 supremacies for a moment before he looked at the blood pool. A dark red ball of light floated above the blood pool. A figure that was 30 feet tall floated in the ball of light. He was extremely majestic, but he did not move at all. Without a doubt, the figure that was wrapped in purple robes was the most honorable person present. 2 supremacies and 4 fiend marshals were guarding him and 100,000 fiend soldiers were kneeling before him. The entire sacrificial altar and blood pool existed for him. He was extremely mysterious, noble, and powerful, and his body contained a terrifying force that could destroy the world. 2 essence soul realm supremacies had extremely powerful auras. However, compared to the purple-robed figure, they were insignificant and not worth mentioning. Ji Tianqing's pupils constricted as he thought to himself, could it be the ancient demon emperor? Is he holding a sacrificial ceremony to increase his power through some evil secret technique? But when he thought about it again, he felt that something was not quite right. He stared at the purple-robed figure in the ball of light and saw some clues. That figure was not the ancient Diablo demon emperor, but a physical body that was half real and half fake. Through the cuffs, collars, and seams of the purple robe, he could see some blurry flesh, pale golden bones, and many pale golden meridians. A ball of dark red blood, faintly glowing with gold, wrapped around this tall body and was flowing slowly. The dark red blood chi in the blood pool continued to gather in the purple robe, as if it was condensing a body of flesh and blood. Clearly, that was a body that had yet to take shape. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. Then, he thought of something and a strange look flashed across his eyes. I get it now. That's the divine body that the Fiend Emperor created for the ancestor Fiend God. Those golden bones are Shui Ruoyu's divine bones. Those pale golden meridians are Emperor Ye's divine tendons. That ball of golden blood is Xiao Wentian's divine blood. After the Fiend Emperor obtained those 3 divine items, he built the altar and blood pool and held a grand sacrificial ceremony to condense a physical body for the ancestor Fiend God. He instantly understood the purple-robed figure's identity. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, intense hatred surged in his heart. Although he really wanted to unleash his most ferocious killing intent and destroy that divine body that had yet to take shape and the entire altar on the spot, he did not dare to do so. His rationality allowed him to remain calm and suppress his murderous intent. This was the fiend race's main camp, the most solemn and mysterious area with the strictest defenses. Moreover, there were 4 demon commanders and 2 primordial soul supremacies guarding the divine body on both sides of the blood pool. Once he attacked, he would be surrounded by the 6 experts before he could even touch the divine body. At that time, regardless of whether he could destroy the divine body or not, he would definitely die. There was no way he could leave this place alive. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing could only remain calm and continue to observe the situation. Although the ancestor fiend god's divine body is about to be condensed successfully, I must remain calm and not act rashly. As long as the fiend emperor does not obtain the mansion master's divine heart, that divine body will not be complete. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, he lowered his head with an indifferent expression and followed Demon Commander Wuxian and the others up the altar and toward the blood pool at the top. When they reached the top of the altar, they stopped at the edge of the blood pool. Demon Commander Wuxian knelt respectfully toward the divine body above the blood pool and kowtowed with a devout expression. The demon kings did the same. They all knelt and kowtowed, chanting ancient fiend incantations. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. Out of instinct, he did not want to kowtow. The 2 venerables guarding the 2 ends of the blood pool immediately looked at him with cold eyes, revealing anger and murderous intent. Without a doubt, that divine body represented the ancestor fiend god that was about to awaken. Anyone who dared to disrespect the ancestor fiend god would be mercilessly killed by the 2 venerables. The 2 venerables stared intently at Ji Tianqing. Their dark red eyes revealed a murderous glint. They were about to kill him in the next moment. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing reacted instantly. He immediately kowtowed and imitated Demon Commander Wuxian's actions. He muttered an incantation and prayed with a devout expression. Seeing this, the anger and murderous intent in the 2 venerables' eyes slowly dissipated. However, they continued to stare at Ji Tianqing. Their eyes were cold and sharp, as if they wanted to see through him. Ji Tianqing's heart was in his throat. He hurriedly tried his best to conceal the aura of his godly soul, not daring to reveal any flaws. After 100 breaths, everyone finished kowtowing. Demon Commander Wuxian signaled with his eyes for them to perform the sacrifice. The demon kings hurriedly used their powers to force out a ball of heart's blood. It was enveloped in dark red light and flew into the blood pool. The ball of heart's blood contained the demon king's profound powers and essence. When it landed in the blood pool, it assimilated with the blood in the pool. Ji Tianqing was already targeted by the 2 venerables. He was in a very dangerous situation. In order not to arouse suspicion, he hurriedly used his powers to force out a ball of heart's blood and injected it into the blood pool. Of course, this ball of heart's blood had nothing to do with him. It was the essence blood of the demon king that he had taken over. After the sacrifice, the demon kings were dispirited. They appeared very tired and weak. Ji Tianqing could only pretend to be tired and lowered his head weakly. Chapter 1377. After the sacrifice, Demon Commander Wuxian led Ji Tianqing and the others away from the altar. They passed through the wasteland where the demon soldiers were gathered and hurried back to the entrance they had come from. However, at the entrance, 2 demon race elites were rushing over. Seeing Demon Commander Wuxian, the 2 elites hurriedly came forward and bowed respectfully. Lord Demon Commander, His Majesty the Demon King has summoned you to discuss important military matters. A strange look flashed across Ji Tianqing's eyes when he heard this news. He thought to himself, the Demon King has indeed come to Heaven Dragon Pass. Our speculation was correct. Demon Commander Wuxian looked at the 2 demon elites who had delivered the message and nodded. Ben Shui will meet His Majesty the Demon King in a moment. After the two demon elites conveyed the order, they turned around and left, their figures disappearing into the dark passage. Demon Commander Wu Shan turned to look at Ji Tianqing and the others. Pointing at 4 demon kings, he ordered, "You may leave now. Hurry back to your stations and strengthen the defenses and patrols." The 4 demon kings cupped their hands in acknowledgement and quickly left. Only Ji Tianqing and another demon king were left by Demon Commander Wu Shan's side. "Let's go." Demon Commander Wu Shan ordered in a low voice. He led Ji Tianqing and the other demon king into the dark tunnel and hurried toward a demon cave as fast as the wind. The 3 traversed through the crisscrossing tunnels. After 100 breaths' time, they entered a huge underground city. This underground city had a radius of dozens of miles. It was the core area of the demon camp. Dozens of black palaces had been built in the dark underground city. Many huge caves had been excavated. Demon Commander Wu Shan led Ji Tianqing and the other demon king to a solemn black palace that occupied an area of thousands of feet. They stopped outside. 36 Sky Origin Realm experts stood outside the wide palace gates. They were divided into 2 groups and guarded the 2 sides of the gate. A huge oval mark was carved into the black wall directly above the gate. The mark was mysterious and complicated. It was engraved with demon words and symbols, as well as images of ghosts and monsters and asuras. Ji Tianqing had been to the demon sacred mountain and seen the heavenly devil palace from afar. He knew that the heavenly devil palace's main gate had a similar mark. That meant that the devil emperor had arrived in person, and was incomparably honorable. Demon Commander Wu Shan showed his identity token to the guards. After receiving permission, he led Ji Tianqing and Li Wuyo through the palace gates and into the dark palace. The corridors, passages, and walls of the palace were inlaid with gemstone lamps, emitting a dark red brilliance. The entire palace was enveloped in blood-red light. It was filled with a dense demonic aura and an ice-cold aura of death. Anyone who entered this palace would feel uneasy and would lower their head in awe and fear. Demon Marshal Wu Shan passed through several corridors and passageways before arriving at the door of a secret room. The 50 feet tall black stone door was tightly shut. 2 vivid and lifelike images of demons were carved on the door, as if they were about to break out of the wall and devour people. "You 2 wait here. Don't act rashly." Demon Commander Wu Shan looked at Ji Tianqing and Nimo Wuji and gave the order with a stern expression. With that, he pressed his palms against the demon images on the stone door and activated the array on the stone door. After his identity was verified by the array, the stone door slowly opened a crack. Swoosh! Demon Commander Wu Shan turned into a black fog and passed through the crack in the stone door, entering the dark secret room. Ji Tianqing and the other demon king stood quietly on both sides of the stone door, not daring to make any noise. Ji Tianqing could not see what was going on in the secret room. But he knew very well that the ancient fiend emperor was in the secret room, discussing important military matters with Demon Commander Wu Shan. He could sense that the fiend emperor's powerful and cold aura was very low-key and reserved. It would only ripple every once in a while. The fiend emperor is indeed here. Otherwise, he would not have built the altar here to rebuild the ancestor fiend god's divine body. However, the fiend emperor must have used some kind of dharma treasure to conceal his aura. It's no wonder why the god monarchs, and the others were unable to find him despite using all kinds of secret arts. On the surface, Ji Tianqing's expression did not change, but his mind was filled with all sorts of thoughts. Although I have completed the mission that the Emperor gave me and investigated the sacrificial ceremony, I managed to sneak into the Fiend Emperor's camp. But it wasn't easy for me to sneak into the demon camp. If I were to leave just like that, it would be a pity. No, I have to think of a way to get more information. He made up his mind to find a way to get more information, and racked his brains to think of a way. However, the Fiend Emperor was in the secret room, and he could not act rashly. Otherwise, he would be in danger of exposing his identity. Given the Fiend Emperor's powerful abilities, he would definitely be able to see through his disguise once he met him or came into close contact with him. After pondering for a while, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind, and he suddenly had an idea. That's right. When I was cultivating in seclusion in the Imperial Palace, the Palace Lord gave me a batch of cultivation resources. Those were the resources that the Palace Lord had accumulated over thousands of years. Apart from large amounts of spirit stones and pills, there were also more than 20 rare treasures and talismans. I vaguely remember that there was a Truth Listener talisman among those talismans. It had a very miraculous effect. That talisman was divided into a pair of mother and child talismans. It could monitor movements thousands of miles away. It was very well hidden and would not be discovered. Recalling this matter, Ji Tianqing had an idea. He glanced at the Fiend King by the stone door and saw that the Fiend King was standing motionlessly with his head lowered in a daze. It was obvious that the Fiend King was filled with fear and reverence for the Fiend Emperor. He did not dare look around or make a sound. Thus, Ji Tianqing silently took out a Truth Listener talisman and stuck it on the dark brown wall of the secret room. This dark gold talisman was as long as a chopstick and as wide as a palm. It was made of a special material and was engraved with mysterious and strange patterns and symbols. When the talisman touched the wall of the secret room, it quietly burrowed into the wall and quickly dissolved. In the blink of an eye, the Truth Listener talisman had disappeared. The talisman released an invisible force that slowly spread through the walls of the secret room. It did not cause any disturbances. It was simply undetectable. After placing the talisman, Ji Tianqing saw that there were no abnormalities in the surroundings and heaved a sigh of relief. He maintained a silent and respectful posture and stood outside the secret room, waiting patiently. After about 100 breaths, the secret room's stone door slowly opened and Demon Commander Wuxian walked out. "Let's go," Demon Commander Wuxian ordered expressionlessly. He quickly led Ji Tianqing and the Fiend King out of the palace. The three of them traversed the complicated underground tunnels for a while before stopping at a fork in the road. Demon Commander Wuxian had to carry out the Fiend Emperor's orders. He turned and left, disappearing into the darkness. Ji Tianqing did not waste any time. He quickly returned to the surface and hurried to the edge of the demon camp. Chapter 1378. Late at night, in the human camp. The commander's palace in the depths of the camp was brightly lit. It was filled with a solemn and tense atmosphere. In the meeting hall, the emperor, who wore a purple dragon and phoenix robe, sat on the main seat. He was resting with his eyes closed. The imperial tutor held a horsetail whisk and stood to the side calmly. His deep eyes revealed that he was thinking about something. In the spacious and bright hall, the commanders stood on both sides. Everyone had anxious and worried expressions as they whispered to each other. The divine general of the northern frontier frowned and said angrily, "It's late at night again. Just now, I used a spell to investigate." The sounds of demons and monsters came from the demon camp again. "They're confusing people." Xiaofan stroked his beard and nodded solemnly. "I wonder what the demons are doing. What are they plotting?" Yun Zhongqi's expression and eyes were filled with worry. He said in a low voice, "Tianqing has already been gone for a few hours. The strange cries of the demons have sounded again. I wonder if his operation went smoothly. Did he find out anything?" The other divine generals and commanders all nodded. Their voices were filled with worry. "That's right. The devil race's camp is so dangerous. Nothing must happen to Ji Tianqing. It'll be fine if he can find out anything. I'm just afraid that he'll be exposed before he can investigate. If anything happens to Ji Tianqing, we'll lose a commander." We'll lose a top expert. This price is too great. Great God Master Heiyu, who had been silent, saw everyone's pessimistic expressions. He said firmly and sternly, I believe in Tianqing's strength and methods. He'll be fine. The divine generals and commanders all glanced at him and fell silent. They stopped discussing this matter. The hall quieted down as everyone restrained the anxiousness and worry in their hearts and waited silently. Time passed silently. Soon, an hour had passed. At this moment, the guard at the entrance of the hall suddenly reported loudly, reporting to the emperor, the Tianshan region Lord Ji Tianqing requests an audience. Hearing this voice, the commanders were all shocked. They all turned to look at the entrance of the hall. The emperor, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at the entrance with bright eyes and said in a low voice, "Summon him." A moment later, a handsome and valiant black-robed figure walked out of the darkness outside the door and stepped into the bright hall. Everyone's gazes gathered on him. They looked at him with concern. Seeing that there were no injuries on his body and his expression was calm, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, the two old marshals and the divine generals frowned. Did the operation? This fellow wouldn't have returned empty-handed, right? If he fails in his mission, could it be that the emperor has no choice but to personally investigate? Just as everyone was pondering, Ji Tianqing walked to the center of the hall and stood there. He bowed to the emperor and said, "Greetings, Your Highness." The emperor nodded and raised his hand, indicating that he could dispense with the formalities. He quickly asked, "Tianqing, what was the result of the operation? Did you get any information?" Ji Tianqing nodded with a smile, "Emperor, fortunately, I did not disappoint. I have investigated the matter of Moin." The emperor raised an eyebrow and a gratified smile appeared on his dignified face. "Very good. This emperor knew that you would not disappoint us. Since you've done your research, then report it quickly." Ji Tianqing went straight to the point. The demonic emperor secretly built an altar and blood pool in the depths of the demonic camp. Every night, he would hold a sacrifice. He explained the situation of the sacrificial altar and the sacrificial ceremony in detail. The emperor, the emperor's preceptor, and the other commanders were all listening with rapt attention. The expressions on their faces were constantly changing. After he finished reporting the situation, everyone's expression became solemn and serious, and they began to whisper to each other again. "I see. No wonder Moin is heard every night. I didn't expect it to be the prayers of 100,000 demonic soldiers. That wretched ancient demonic emperor, he actually used an evil secret art to forge the primogenitor demon god's body?" A year ago, Tianqing warned the emperor and imperial tutor that the demonic emperor was carrying out a shocking plan to revive the primogenitor demon god. When I first heard this news, I thought it was inconceivable. How could a fallen demon god survive until now? Now it seems that Tianqing's deduction was correct. The primogenitor demon god is really going to revive. The primogenitor demon god's body is more than half complete. Doesn't this mean that the demon god will soon be reborn? Following the discussions of the crowd, a heavy and oppressive atmosphere pervaded the hall. Master Heiyu didn't participate in the discussion. He frowned and pondered over Ji Tianqing's words. Suddenly, he asked, "Tianqing, you said that the altar and blood pool were built by the demonic emperor. In that case, are you sure that the demonic emperor is in the demonic camp?" Hearing these two sentences, everyone immediately quieted down and turned their heads to look at Ji Tianqing. Even the emperor and imperial tutor stared at Ji Tianqing, waiting for his answer. Ji Tianqing nodded solemnly and said, "That's right. The ancient demonic emperor is indeed in the demonic camp. He just used some secret art or treasure to conceal his aura. After I followed Demon Commander Wuxian to participate in the ceremony, Demon Commander Wuxian was summoned by the demonic emperor to discuss military matters in the Demon Palace. I was guarding outside the secret chamber, and the demonic emperor was in the secret chamber. I could clearly sense his aura. It can't be fake. Hearing this news, all the commanders' hearts sank and their expressions turned ugly. Previously, everyone only suspected that the demonic emperor had come to the Heaven Dragon Pass. Now that this news was confirmed, everyone felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on their hearts. It was very heavy and stifling. Ji Tianqing took out a dark golden talisman from his interspatial ring and continued, "At that time, the demonic emperor was in the secret chamber. I didn't dare to act rashly lest I expose my whereabouts. However, I made use of this truth listener talisman to do something in the secret chamber and buried a mother talisman. This talisman in my hand is a child talisman. It can monitor the movements in the demon palace and the secret chamber from 1,000 miles away." Everyone's eyes immediately gathered on the dark golden talisman. They were all looking forward to it. The emperor's eyes also shone brightly. He hurriedly ordered, "Tianqing, quickly use the talisman to monitor the movements in the demon palace. See what the demonic emperor is up to." Ji Tianqing nodded and channeled his majestic magic power into the truth listener talisman to activate it. Swoosh! The dark golden talisman lit up with a dazzling golden light and burned out in an instant. It turned into a fist-sized ball of golden light that floated in the hall. Chapter 1379. I've gathered all of you here tonight to announce an important matter. The voice from the golden ball of light clearly belonged to the ancient demon emperor. The voice was deep and majestic, as cold as ice, and carried a chill of death. All the commanders in the conference hall listened quietly, their expressions grave and solemn. Even though the demon emperor was speaking the demon language, the demon commanders might not be able to understand him. However, Ji Tianqing was quite proficient in the demon language, so he took the initiative to translate for everyone. The truth listener divine talisman is monitoring that secret room. The demon emperor has gathered a few demon commanders and venerables to announce an important matter. The demon emperor's voice sounded again. Our army has been at the foot of the Tianlong mountain pass, and has been confronting the human race for half a month. During this period, our soldiers have attacked several times and sacrificed nearly 1 million warriors, but we still couldn't break through. The ancient divine array covering the Heaven Dragon Pass can't be broken in a short time. It's obviously unrealistic for us to break through the Heaven Dragon Pass and march into the Central Plains. It will definitely take a long time. Therefore, I've decided to attack Dongyang Valley instead. Dongyang Valley will be the breakthrough point. As the demon emperor's voice fell, the golden ball of light was silent for a long time before another voice sounded. This voice was a bit special. It was harsh and cold, like the sound of metal striking together, without the slightest emotion. Your Majesty, Dongyang Valley is 100,000 miles away from the Heaven Dragon Pass. It's one of the few dangerous passes in the North Pacifying Mountain Range. Dongyang Valley's defense isn't as strong as the Heaven Dragon Pass, but it's also a place that's easy to defend and hard to attack. Our army has been fighting for more than a year after leaving the northern desert, and we're already tired. If we travel a long way to Dongyang Valley, not only will we consume a lot of resources and soldiers, but we'll also be delayed for at least 10 days. Even if we attack Dongyang Valley instead, the humans will definitely send reinforcements once they find out where we're going. Our chances of winning aren't high. After Ji Tianqing translated these words for everyone, he added an explanation. This is the voice of Demon Commander Ming Yi. He's highly regarded by the Demon Emperor and has a very high status. Then, several more voices came from the Golden Ball of Light. Your Majesty, we've already established a camp here for the army to stay and rest for a long time. We have plenty of time to confront human beings. Your Majesty, please reconsider. As long as we continue to attack Heaven Long Pass, we will soon wear down the humankind, and within a month at most, we will be able to kill our way into Zhongzhou. Your Majesty, the ancient divine formation of Tianlong Pass can't be activated for a long time. I estimate that it won't be able to hold on for too long. At most, it will collapse by itself within a month. Those were the voices of the demon marshals, and they were all trying to persuade the ancient fiend emperor. Among those voices, there were also two strange and ancient voices. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment, then determined that it should be the voices of the two blood god venerables. After a while, the demon commanders and venerables quieted down. Only then did the demon emperor speak in a dignified and unquestionable tone, "Everyone, there's no need to say anything more. This emperor has already made his decision. All you need to do is follow my orders. This emperor's plans and objectives are not something that you can guess. Demon Commander Dark Knight, Demon Commander Broken Soul, and Demon Commander Wuxian, the three of you will lead 20 million troops and defend Heavenlong Pass. This emperor will personally lead the 10 million troops and secretly attack Dongyang Valley. We will break through Dongyang Valley at lightning speed. While this emperor is leading the troops, the three of you will take charge of the overall situation. Take turns to send troops to attack Heavenlong Pass and attract the attention of the humankind so that they won't have time to care about Dongyang Valley." Hearing the Demon Emperor's orders, Demon Commander Dark Knight, Demon Commander Broken Soul, and Demon Commander Wuxian all said in unison. Then, the Demon Emperor ordered in a dignified tone, "Venerable Blood Killer and Venerable Demon Blood, the two of you will continue to guard the ancestor altar. No matter what, you must ensure that the sacrificial ceremony is carried out normally. The great ancestor sacrifice is the most sacred and solemn event of our race. It concerns the future of our race, and we must not fail. Venerable Blood Tyrant and Venerable Blood Killer, the two of you will lead the Blood God Guards and follow me to attack Dongyang Valley. I will break through Dongyang Valley at the fastest speed, cross the North Pacifying Mountain Range, and kill my way into Zhongzhou." Following the Demon Emperor's orders, the Demon Marshals and Venerables all obeyed. It didn't take long for the Demon Emperor to finish his orders and arrange the operation plan. The golden ball of light quieted down, and no more sound came out. After a quarter of an hour or so, the golden ball of light dimmed and gradually dissipated. Ji Tianqing and the other commanders frowned as they thought about the Demon Emperor's orders. Their faces became solemn and serious. Even the Emperor and the Imperial Tutor frowned, and their faces became cold and gloomy. The atmosphere in the hall was almost frozen, and it was filled with a thick murderous aura. After a long while, the Emperor swept his dignified gaze across the crowd and said, "Everyone, I believe you have heard the Demon Emperor's plan. The Demon Emperor knows that he won't be able to break through Tianlong Pass in a short time, so he can't hold back anymore. He will personally lead 2 venerables, hundreds of blood god sons, and tens of millions of demon soldiers to attack Dongyang Valley overnight. What do you think? Let's discuss, brainstorm, and come up with a countermeasure." As the Emperor's voice fell, Prince Yi took a step forward and said in a serious tone, "Emperor, Dongyang Valley is far from here. The imperial court only sent 500,000 soldiers to guard it. Although the terrain of Dongyang Valley is dangerous and easy to defend, the 500,000 soldiers will definitely not be able to stop the Demon Emperor's attack. I suggest that the Emperor immediately mobilize the army to reinforce Dongyang Valley as soon as possible. Otherwise, Dongyang Valley will definitely be lost." Prince Xiaoqin nodded in agreement and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianqing's truth listener talisman played a crucial role. It allowed us to eavesdrop on the Demon Emperor's plan. This is a great fortune for us humans. We must reinforce Dongyang Valley and destroy the Demon Emperor's plan. Otherwise, it will lead to a disaster." In addition to the 2 old marshals, the Divine General of the North and the Divine General of the West Wilderness also agreed. "Yes, not only do we have to reinforce Dongyang Valley, but we also need the Emperor to lead the army. Otherwise, no one can stop the demon emperor. However, Xiaofan shook his head and said, "Everyone, we only have 8 million soldiers. We can barely defend Tianlong Pass with the help of the primordial divine array. How can we reinforce Dongyang Valley? If the emperor personally leads 5 million soldiers and mobilizes 6 or 7 commanders to reinforce Dongyang Valley, we might be able to stop the demon emperor's attack. However, Tianlong Pass is defenseless. If the demon army takes advantage of the situation and attacks, who can stop them? By then, Tianlong Pass will definitely be lost, and the demon army will be able to invade." Great God Master He Yu also agreed. He said expressionlessly, "The ancient demon emperor has always been sinister and cunning. Who can guarantee that this is not another one of his schemes? I think that the ancient demon emperor might be creating a diversion or splitting his forces to force us to fight a decisive battle with him." Chapter 1380. Everyone understood Divine Master He Yu's words. If the emperor did not bring reinforcements, the demon king could easily break through Dongyang Valley, cross the northern pacifying mountain range, and enter the central plains. If the emperor personally led reinforcements to Dongyang Valley, the defenses of Tianlong Pass would be very weak. At that time, the two supremacies and several demon commanders would lead an army of 10 million to attack Tianlong Pass. Tianlong Pass would definitely fall. In short, the demon race had the absolute advantage and held the initiative. Whether or not the emperor went to reinforce Dongyang Valley, he would be in a passive position and lose a pass. After Divine Master He Yu finished speaking, the hall fell into silence. The various commanders discussed in secret, but they could not come up with a countermeasure. The Nephilim Emperor's plan was simply unsolvable. No one could break it. Even the wise and mighty emperor, the imperial tutor, who knew astronomy and geography, was stumped by the demon king's plan. No matter how smart and resourceful the emperor, the imperial tutor, and the various commanders were, they were limited by the lack of soldiers and experts. They could not deal with it at all. In terms of numbers, the humans were far behind the demon race. In terms of numbers, the demon race had 30 million soldiers, almost 4 times the number of the humans. How should they fight this battle? No one had an answer. After a long silence, the emperor finally spoke and gave an order. "Ji Tianqing, this emperor orders you to move out immediately and find out the movements of the demon race's army. You must find out if the demon king has led his army to Dongyang Valley. Only after this matter is confirmed can we proceed to the next step of the plan." Ji Tianqing did not waste any time. He cupped his fists and bowed, then immediately turned and left the hall, flying toward the northern pacifying mountain range. The emperor's gaze swept across the crowd, then he ordered, "Commanders, return to your camps immediately and prepare the army. Stand by and be ready to attack at any time." The 4 directions divine generals, the 2 old marshals, Yun Zhongqi, Long Yunshao, and the others immediately bowed and left the hall. After a while, the hall quietened down. Only the emperor, the imperial tutor, and the divine master Black Feather were left. The emperor looked worried as he looked at God Sage He Yu with burning eyes. He asked in a deep voice, "Great God Sage, you should understand the current situation. The demon clan is powerful, and we have few soldiers. It is difficult to deal with them. I just want to know where the mansion master is. The central plains is in imminent danger and could be overturned at any moment. Why hasn't the mansion lord appeared yet?" The imperial tutor felt the same way and said, "Great God Teacher, the central region is the territory of the human race in name, but it is actually the territory of the imperial residents. As the number 1 martial holy land of the continent, the imperial monarch palace ruled over all the different races and had the right to protect the people of the continent. Now that the devil race is coming in full force and the central state is about to fall, the mansion master has mysteriously disappeared. This is really inappropriate. It was obvious that the emperor and the imperial tutor were somewhat resentful. When the demon race's army attacked, it should be the monarch residents and the human race working together to resist the demon race's army. Now, the mansion master had disappeared and only the human race was left. How could they resist the demon race? God Sage Heiyu was questioned by the emperor, but his expression did not change. He said indifferently, "The mansion master's identity is extraordinary and his whereabouts have always been mysterious. How could I know? Even if the mansion master did not appear, I will lead all the princes and god sages to participate in this war and resist the demon race's army. The imperial residence has done its best. If the emperor still has any complaints, you can speak to the mansion master. It is useless to speak to me. You." The imperial tutor was so angry that his white beard flew up. The emperor also frowned and a hint of anger flashed in his eyes. However, he did not lose his composure and asked indifferently, "Great God Sage, please try to contact the mansion master and ask him to appear as soon as possible. If the demon race really invades the Central Plains, it will not be good for us." God Sage Heiyu nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, "A few days ago, I have already sent a message to the mansion master to urge him. I believe that the mansion master will appear in the next few days." "A few days?" The emperor frowned again and murmured, "Is it 2 or 3 days, or 8 or 10 days? Can he make it in time to rescue Dongyang Valley?" God Sage Heiyu pretended that he did not hear this. He cupped his hands and bowed, "If there is nothing else, I will take my leave. I have to go back and send a message to ask the god sages and princes to prepare." After bowing, he took his leave and walked out of the main hall. However, when he was about to reach the entrance of the main hall, his expression suddenly changed and he stopped. The emperor and the imperial tutor, who looked worried, suddenly sensed something and immediately looked out of the main hall. After 3 breaths, a golden light that looked like a sharp arrow shot through the night sky. Swoosh! In an instant, the golden light pierced through the night sky and landed in front of the main hall. After the golden light faded away, a tall and sturdy figure with an imposing aura appeared. This was a middle-aged man with white hair. He wore a purple robe embroidered with stars and exuded a domineering aura. Without a doubt, he was the mansion master of the emperor's residence, Gu Daoxian. "Emperor, how have you been?" The mansion master put his hands behind his back and stepped into the main hall expressionlessly. He greeted the emperor from afar. God Sage Heiyu's eyes were filled with excitement when he saw his return. He quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, mansion master." The mansion master waved his hand to indicate that he could dispense with the formalities and led him into the main hall. When the emperor and the emperor's preceptor saw that the mansion master had finally appeared, their eyes flashed with excitement as they heaved a huge sigh of relief. "Greetings, mansion master." The two of them cupped their hands and bowed to the mansion master. The mansion master walked into the main hall and stood still. He looked at the emperor calmly and asked, "I did not expect the situation in the continent to become so bad after only leaving for 3 months. The demons' attacks are too strong and their pace is too fast. I have just returned to Zhongzhou. Please inform me about the situation of the 2 armies." With the mansion master present, the emperor felt less pressure and was in a better mood. He nodded to the imperial tutor and motioned for the imperial tutor to explain the situation to the mansion master. The imperial tutor did not waste any time. He quickly briefed the mansion master on the situation of the continent and the 2 armies in a concise and precise manner. There was also Ji Tianqing's infiltration into the devil race's main camp and the news of the sacrificial ceremony. The imperial preceptor also told the manor head about the devil emperor's plan. After learning about this, the mansion master frowned and pondered for a moment. Then, he said in a majestic tone, "The demons have many soldiers and have an absolute advantage. The demon king's plan is indeed difficult to break. However, the emperor need not worry. You only need to guard Tianlong Mountain Pass. I will personally go to Dongyang Valley and resolve the Demon King's plot. Dongyang Valley has steep terrain and is easy to defend but difficult to attack. Chapter 1381. The palace master's words caused the emperor, emperor's preceptor, and god teacher He Yu's expressions to change. The emperor frowned and said worriedly, "Master, you want to go to Dongyang Valley alone? There are only 500,000 soldiers in Dongyang Valley, but the Demon King has brought 10 million soldiers." The imperial tutor shook his head and said, "Master, no matter how dangerous the terrain is, it can't stop 20 times the number of soldiers. In this old man's opinion, it would be best for you to bring 2 to 3 million soldiers and 2 to 3 commanders." Divine Master He Yu said firmly, "Master, I and a few other divine masters are willing to go to Dongyang Valley with you to resist the demon army." The master pondered for a moment and said, "It's not easy to defend the Tianlong Pass with 8 million soldiers. I won't bring any more soldiers to Dongyang Valley. I only need to bring God-tier Master Black Feather and a few other God-tier masters." The emperor was still worried and said, "Master, Dongyang Valley must not be lost. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable if the demon race invades Zhongzhou. Are you confident that you can defend Dongyang Valley with only a few divine masters?" The master nodded and said calmly, "I will rush to Dongyang Valley as soon as possible and set up a few primordial soul formation before the demon army arrives. No matter how large the demon army is, they can't break through the divine formation I set up." Seeing that Zhang Xian had already come up with a plan and was confident of succeeding, the god monarch nodded in agreement. The master didn't stay any longer. He quickly left the hall with Divine Master He Yu to gather the other divine masters. At this moment, a spiritual light flew into the hall and landed in the emperor's hand. Within the spiritual light was a communication jade slip. The emperor's divine sense invaded the jade slip and immediately read the message in it. Only then did he know that it was a message from Ji Tianqing. "Master, the Demon King has indeed gathered 10 million soldiers and left the demon race's camp overnight to go to Dongyang Valley." The emperor thought for a moment, then entered a message into the jade slip and sent it back to Ji Tianqing. "Ji Tianqing, follow the demon army in secret and monitor their movements. If you find anything unusual, report it immediately. 1 day later, you will report back to our camp." The jade transformed into a beam of light and flew out of the hall, quickly disappearing into the night sky. The emperor and the imperial tutor looked at each other, and they both looked relieved. A hint of hope flashed in their eyes. Fortunately, the manor head came back in time. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Yes. With the mansion master and a few divine masters guarding Dongyang Valley, there shouldn't be a problem. However, even if the manor lord can defend Dongyang Valley, we won't be able to hold on for long. In at most half a month, the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass's ancient divine formation will lose its effect, and at that time, we will still have to fight the 20 million devils head-on. At this point, their expressions became heavy, and a layer of haze shrouded their hearts. There was no other way. Even if they could temporarily resolve the Demon King's scheme, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass had been breached, and the demon army would invade the Central Plains. It seemed to be a foregone conclusion. Ji Tianqing crossed the northern Calming Mountain range and followed the demon army all the way. Although the Demon King was personally leading the army, and there were 2 primordial soul supremacies under his command. However, Ji Tianqing hid behind the demon army and carefully concealed his aura, so he wouldn't be discovered. The demon army of more than 10 million made a huge commotion. It was simply earth-shattering. 100,000 black flying ships carried the demon race army of 10 million as they hurried over the mountains and rivers. These flying boats were all flying artifacts made by demon craftsmen. Each boat could carry 100 people, and their speed was very fast. Wherever the flying boats passed, rolling demonic fog covered the night sky, and a dense black chi spread for thousands of miles. The densely packed flying boats were like an endless swarm of black ants. They formed a 400-mile-long line, looking extremely spectacular. With the speed of those flying boats, they could fly about 5,000 miles a day. In about 10 days, the demon army would arrive at East Sun Valley. Ji Tianqing followed the Emperor Lord's orders and followed the demon army for a day before returning to the human camp. Late that night, he returned to the human camp and quickly rushed to the commander's palace in the depths of the camp. In the conference hall, the Emperor Lord was still sitting on the throne, while the imperial tutor stood to the side with a horsetail whisk. There were only 3 commanders present on both sides of the hall. They were the Prince, the filial prince, and divine general Xiaofan. When Ji Tianqing entered the hall, the Emperor Lord was discussing military matters with the 3 commanders. Seeing him return, the Emperor Lord stopped the meeting and asked, "Tianqing, what's the Demon King's movement?" Ji Tianqing hurriedly replied, "Emperor Lord, the Demon King has led an army of 10 million to East Sun Valley and has been on the road for an entire day. I followed them all the way and didn't notice anything unusual. Everything is going according to the Demon King's plan." Only then was the Emperor Lord completely relieved. He nodded and said, "That's good. It seems that the Demon King is really going to attack East Sun Valley." Fortunately, the Palace Lord came back in time last night and has already rushed to East Sun Valley. With the Palace Lord and a few divine masters, East Sun Valley should be able to withstand the demon army's attack. Ji Tianqing was shocked when he heard the news. What? The Palace Lord came back last night and has already rushed to East Sun Valley? The Emperor Lord nodded and was about to tell him what happened last night. Right at this moment, a few Sky Origin stage human generals rushed over as fast as lightning, anxiously rushing into the hall. Report. The demon army is moving again. Urgent report. Urgent report. The demon army is attacking. After the generals rushed into the meeting hall, they shouted loudly and anxiously as they reported the military situation. Hearing the shouts, the Emperor Lord and Ji Tianqing frowned and looked at them. The 4 generals who were responsible for delivering the message all knelt down in the main hall and reported in an urgent tone, "Your Highness, the demon race's main camp is filled with demonic chi, and the bugle horn has sounded. Your Majesty, the demon army has gathered and launched an attack on Heaven Long Mountain Pass at night. Your Majesty, the demon army has sent 2 legions, about 2 million soldiers, to Heaven Long Mountain Pass. The attack is very fierce. Your Majesty, the war has already begun. The 800,000 soldiers guarding Heaven Long Mountain Pass are fighting a bloody battle." The 4 generals were all guarding the front line, but their positions were different. One of them was a scout general responsible for collecting information. Some were guarding generals, and one was a vanguard general. Therefore, the 4 generals reported slightly different news, each representing the movement of the demon army. Ji Tianqing frowned when he heard the news, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The Demon King has only been out for a day, and the demon army has already sent an army to attack Heaven Long Mountain Pass. Everything is going according to the Demon King's plan. Chapter 1382. The Emperor's face was cold, and his eyes were surging with strong killing intent. Everything is going according to the Demon Emperor's plan. The demon army attacked late at night just to delay our army so that we have no time to take care of Dongyang Valley. However, the demon army is not bluffing. They will definitely attack Heaven Long Pass with all their strength. The Emperor said with an expressionless face, then made a prompt decision and ordered, "Xiaofan, immediately gather 400,000 soldiers and go reinforce the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass. Yi Qin Wang, you also go back to the barracks to get ready. gather 500,000 troops and wait for this emperor's order." Xiaofan and Yi Qinhuang hurriedly cupped their hands and saluted, and said in a solemn and respectful tone, "Yes, Emperor." After saying that, the two turned and left the conference hall, returning to the barracks. Seeing Ji Tianqing's worried face, the emperor said, "Tianqing, you don't have to worry about this. Every 2 or 3 days, the demon army will launch a strong attack. You have been busy for 2 days. Go and rest. If there is any mission, this emperor will summon you." Ji Tianqing shook his head and said calmly, "Emperor, I have never fought with anyone, so I don't need to rest. Heaven Long Pass is under attack. I want to go to the battlefield to see the situation and do my part." The emperor didn't want to send him to participate in the battle. He didn't expect that he would take the initiative to ask to go. In the emperor's eyes, he was the #1 genius of the continent, a top powerhouse. It was a waste of talent for such a powerhouse to lead troops in the battle. It was most suitable for him to inquire about information or carry out assassination missions. However, Ji Tianqing's attitude was very firm. He insisted on going to the battlefield of Heaven Long Pass. The emperor thought for a while and nodded in agreement. "It's good that you want to go to the battlefield to see the situation, but you can't show up easily. The demon army hates you to the bone. If they see you on the battlefield, they will definitely kill you at all costs." "I understand." Ji Tianqing nodded, bowed to the emperor, and left the hall. He flew into the dark night sky, passed through the noisy barracks, and flew toward Heaven Long Pass in the north. In the human army's barracks below, hundreds of thousands of armored and sword-wielding soldiers were nervously gathered in an orderly formation. Many generals were riding on war beasts and mounts, leading the army to the Heaven Long Pass in the north to provide support. Xiaofan and over a dozen Sky Origin stage generals were standing in the dark night sky, looking down at the formation of the army. They were preparing for the battle. Ji Tianqing didn't wait for them. He flew across the night sky as fast as lightning, heading straight for the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass. Even when he was still 100 miles away, he could see that the ancient divine formation was emitting a dazzling golden light that illuminated half of the night sky in the huge dark canyon. The furious roars of over 1 million infernal race soldiers converged into a torrent of sound waves that surged forth wave after wave. The biting cold north wind blew in their faces, carrying with it the pungent smell of blood. The air was filled with dark red blood, full of killing intent. The closer Ji Tianqing got to the Heaven Long Pass, the faster his blood flowed. His whole body was bursting with killing intent. Swish! After a while, he flew to the top of the Heaven Long Pass. The huge ancient divine formation not only had a strong defensive power, but also could release all kinds of wind blades and frost blades, which poured out like a tide. Ji Tianqing flew over the Heaven Long Pass, but he was also injured by those magic attacks. However, he relied on his powerful strength to pass through Tian Long Pass unscathed. He flew to the north of the canyon and stopped over the battlefield. Standing in the night sky, he looked down at the battlefield and carefully observed the situation. Outside the Heaven Long Pass was a huge and deep valley, which was at least 200 miles in radius. The ground in the valley had been dyed dark brown by blood. The soil was soaked and turned into bloody mud. Corpses of demons and human soldiers were lying on the ground one after another, almost covering the entire valley. Most of the corpses were incomplete, and the way they died was hideous and horrible. It was very miserable. The army of millions of Devil Clan was like a black mass of ants, spreading in the deep valley and recklessly attacking the Heaven Long Mountain Pass. Every demon soldier had a ferocious face, bursting with killing intent. They roared at the top of their lungs, waving their swords and sabers toward the Heaven Long Pass. In the formation of the demon race army, there were also thousands of ferocious and hideous demon beasts that were as large as mountains. Those demonic beasts were different. Some were like giant bears, which could smash a mountain with their claws. Some were like giant pythons, which opened their bloody mouths and spurted out monstrous venom, which instantly corroded tens of thousands of human soldiers into bones. There were also many demonic beasts, whose appearances were very strange, and no one knew their names. However, their fighting strength was extremely fierce, and they were even more powerful than heavenly origin stage devil kings. In addition to the demon army and demonic beasts, there were dozens of dark red blood lights floating in the sky. Those were the blood gods' clones. The weaker ones were only at the heavenly origin stage, while the stronger ones had reached the soul refining stage. They were devouring the blood, chi, and souls on the battlefield, quickly increasing their strength. Rushing to the forefront of the demon army's formation was unexpectedly a sea of white skeletons. Those were the undead warriors summoned by the demon experts. Their fighting strength was very powerful, and they were not afraid of death. Numerous specters and ghosts were also floating in the sky, constantly releasing dark green flames and blue soul flames, crazily attacking the entrance of the Heaven Long Pass. This was the battlefield of the Heaven Long Pass. Every battle would cause hundreds of thousands of deaths. The corpses on the battlefield were piled up into mountains, and the blood gathered into lakes. Those demon experts secretly cast spells, melting the corpses and the blood lakes into undead warriors, ghosts, and devils, which served as the vanguard of the demon army. In the sky thousands of feet above the ground, thousands of demon experts and devil kings were arranged in a formation in the night sky. They joined hands to cast some kind of devil path secret technique, gathering the strength of more than 3,000 people to release all kinds of heaven-splitting giant swords, giant axes, long spears, bloodlights, and other attacks, crazily attacking the Heaven Long Pass. Inside the Heaven Long Pass, most of the soldiers were holed up in the ancient divine array, protected by the Golden Light Shield. Some of the soldiers who left the Golden Light Shield and rushed out of the Heaven Long Pass to stop the demon army were bombarded into meat paste by the earth-shattering attacks, instantly annihilating them. The attacks of the million demon army were like a flood pouring down from the sky, and also like a torrential rain of arrows, bombarding the Golden Light Shield one after another, causing earth-shattering noises. Boom! 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 Along with the ear-splitting noises, the huge Golden Light Shield was constantly shaking, creating layers upon layers of ripples, flickering with dazzling golden light. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.